Welcome, everyone.
Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the San Francisco Historic Preservation Commission hearing for Wednesday, December 7th, 2022. To enable public participation, SF TV is broadcasting and streaming this hearing live, and we will receive public comment for each item on today's agenda. Comments or opportunities to speak during the public comment period are available by calling 415-655-0001 and entering access code 2484-357-0591. You may also join via the WebEx link on the agenda. We will take public comment from persons in City Hall first, and then open up the remote access line. Please speak clearly and slowly, and if you care to, state your name for the record. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes, and when you have 30 seconds remaining, you will hear a chime indicating your time is almost up. When your allotted time is reached, I will announce that your time is up and take the next person queued to speak. For those persons calling in to submit their testimony, when we reach the item you are interested in speaking to, press star 3 to be added to the queue. When you hear that your line has been unmuted, that is your indication to begin speaking. Best practices are to call from a quiet location, speak clearly and slowly, and please mute the volume on your television or computer. For those persons attending in City Hall, please line up on the screen side of the room. Finally, I'll ask everyone to please silence your mobile devices that may sound off during these proceedings. And at this time, I'd like to take roll. Commission President Matsuda.
Here.
Commission Vice President Nagaswaran.
Here.
Commissioner Black.
Here.
Commissioner Johns.
Here.
Commissioner So.
Here.
And Commissioner Wright.
Here.
We expect Commissioner Foley to be absent today. First on your agenda, Commissioners, is general public comment. At this time, members of the public may address the Commission on items of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Commission, except agenda items. With respect to agenda items, your opportunity to address the Commission will be afforded when the item is reached in the meeting. Each member of the public may address the Commission for up to 3 minutes. If you're in the chambers, please come forward. If you're calling in remotely, you need to press star 3 or raise your hand on WebEx. Seeing no members.
Oh, I have public comment.
Well, please come forward, folks.
I have public comment. Well, before I get started, your timer is not set. Hi, Michael Petrellis here, and I am back here after making appearances before this commission in the past about a very important matter. And I'm really depressed that this commission has not taken up the matter about lack of town halls, lack of a discussion here at City Hall regarding a global, iconic cultural institution. I am really fearful that we are not going to have a discussion today about this institution, about what is needed to retain the integrity of this institution, which of course is the Castro Theatre. I think it needs to be addressed from the beginning of your meeting. Will you be continuing the item about landmarking the Castro Theatre? You haven't addressed that. And I have seen you and the Planning Commission on continuance matters not take public comment. If you're not going to take public comment on the continuance item, I believe you need to say that now so that other members of the public can take advantage of general public comment. Even if you are going to take public comment on that continuance item, I encourage everyone who is here at City Hall, everyone who is watching on TV, to speak up if we get 2 chances during general public comment and during the continuance item. There hasn't been enough respect from all of the key players in this drama. We are in the 10th month since it was announced that the Nasser family was turning over management of the Castro Theatre to the Another Planet folks. So please address the matter of whether you'll take public comment on the continuance. Thank you very much.
Yeah, for the benefit of members of the public, general public comment is intended for those items that are not on today's agenda. The Castro Theatre is on our agenda today, and we will receive public comment related to the matter of continuance, but only on the matter of continuance.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hello. I wanted to address specifically the fact that while many of us might be dismayed that a cost-benefit analysis has to be done here, we realize that it is a way of life, and what I want to address is what we know we're losing versus what we think we're gaining, or what others think they are gaining. Skift Meeting Research recently put event attendance numbers down and trending at 65% of 2019 numbers. Center for Exhibition Industry Research, Omnichannel Marketing Series said volume of attendance levels are below 2019 at a decline of 37.9% since the pandemic. World Education Congress in San Francisco estimated the numbers at Moscone this year at 1,700 in-person registries compared to 2,600 in-person registries in 2019. American Library Association put it at 34.8% decrease in attendees this year, and Billboard, to be more relevant about this topic, music, concert events, a Billboard article earlier this year said that even when ticket sales are high, no shows are still a very big problem for venues because of the pandemic. So I do want to address the fact that if we're speaking to the historical significance of this building, the seats absolutely are historical. You know, people who worked with Harvey Milk sat in those seats, ACT UP sat in those seats, and people who are still a major part of the community, including many representatives here from San Francisco Silent Film Festival and other festivals, Berlin and Beyond, Noir Fest. It's still an active, vibrant part of the community. It's not a gray lady that we're all looking at that's decrepit and done. Its time is still very much present. But I wanted to say that a lot of these companies have visions, and if that vision pans out, not by a slippery slope argument, but by what's been demonstrated in the last 2 years, where are we then? When we chop up this theater, where are we? I was driving down Mission the other day and saw a theater with a friend of mine, and it was a Walgreens, and he said, "Oh, that looks like an old movie theater," and of course it was. If people don't get the value for money that they think they're going to get, that is what is most often demonstrated to be the outcome. And I think we deserve better than that for the Castro in San Francisco. I think the Castro has been a major part of our history, but it's also a major part of our present. And to leave you with this, just the other day I was at a day of silence put on by San Francisco Silent Film Festival, which is an event I've been going to pretty much ever since it was incepted. Thank you. And I was sitting next to a guy who came in from Florida just for that, just like for the last 15 to 20 years, however long it's been going on. Every single year I'm sitting next to people who come in just for that. And during the 45-minute to an hour breaks, in between every single film, and there were 6 films, he would come back and show me socks he bought or talk about his meal that he had. And every person in that theater contributes to the local economy.
Thank you, ma'am. That is your time.
And that has to be taken into consideration, too. Thank you for your time.
Okay, if there are no other members of the public in the chambers, we'll go to our remote callers. Again, when you hear that your line has been unmuted, that is your indication to begin speaking. And I will remind members of the public that the Castro Theatre is on today's agenda, so really this is not the opportunity to speak to it specifically.
Speak up, we can't hear you.
Sure. Is this better?
Yes, much better.
Okay. I just said that we will take public comment from our remote callers if there are no additional speakers in the chambers. If there are, please come forward and line up on the screen side of the room. And I will remind folks that the Castro Theatre is on today's agenda, and so general public comment is not intended for matters that are on today's agenda. Sir, are you doing public comment?
I could, but I'll save it. I guess I will. So I've been filming at the Castro for 10 years, and it's great that it has the seats. This idea that you
Sir,
can't...
I'm going to remind you and everyone else that Castro Theatre is on today's agenda.
I'll just finish this. It'll take 10 seconds.
That's about to continue in.
There's a theater in Oakland where I live called the Paramount that's owned by the city. It's the most beautiful theater I've ever been in my life, and I see music concerts there all the time. So you don't need to take the seats out to have concerts. That's the only point I want to make. I saw Merle Haggard there 6 months before he died. One of the greatest concerts I've ever seen. Caetano Veloso. Saw him there. Amazing, amazing concert. You could see comedy there. You could see movies there. You could see everything. No seats were ever taken out. That's all.
Hi, my name is Ingrid Eggers, and the Berlin and Beyond Film Festival was mentioned. So here I am. I was the co-founder in 1996. It's a German language film festival. Not a very big festival, but people came from Europe, Germany, Switzerland, and Austria, and opened the door to the Castro, and they were in awe. Why were they in awe? First of all, they thought, oh, we will never fill this theater. And they were a little bit scared. But then people came. People came, and even if it was not full, they had the memory of their lifetime. They wanted to come back. They said it was the best screening experience that they had. So, but there were a few screenings that were sold out. And one of them I want to talk about when Bruno Ganz came with the film Downfall, where he played Hitler. And Bruno Ganz, who has been in all theaters, all over Europe, opened the door to the Castro, and he was speechless. Every seat was filled. And he did something that he did not do in Europe. He stayed behind. He talked to everybody who had a question after the Q&A. He gave his signature. He didn't go up to the party. He didn't like parties. But he stayed around and talked to all the people there. And then I went to him and I said, well, that was really nice. I didn't know that you would do this. And he said, this is the Castro. I've never been here, and it is special. I was here in front of this committee about 5 years ago, trying to prevent a monster home being built in my historic neighborhood next to my tiny little historic cottage. And one of, not you guys, was somebody else, said, oh, lady, wake up, this is San Francisco, and this is where things change. And indeed, the monster home is still being built. It has changed the neighborhood. And I just hope that you won't do that to the Castro. It needs to stay. It's a destination for film people, for audience, and for tourists. Save the Castro.
Good afternoon. My name is Eddie Muller. I am a native San Franciscan and a lifelong attendee of the Castro Theatre, but more relevantly, I am the producer and host of the Noir City Film Festival, which has taken place at the Castro Theatre. We'll say for 20 years, although it's been somewhat in fits and starts in a couple of those years. I am also a host on Turner Classic Movies, which never would have happened were it not for what I was able to accomplish at the Castro Theatre. I can attest to you that the annual Noir City Film Festival is the envy of film programmers around the world, because I have traveled around the world and they are astounded that we are able to put 1,000 people in that theater to watch classic films that people have never even heard of, that are 60, 75 years old, or in the case of the Silent Film Festival, even older. It is absolutely absurd to think that the seats must be removed in order for the Castro Theatre to survive. This transition has happened all over America, with vintage movie houses that have been preserved by nonprofit entities who use them as mixed-use performing art venues, still showing films, and retaining the seats. Just recently, Morrissey, world-class artist, performed at the Castro Theatre. The seats were still there. He sold out the theater in minutes. I mean, it is absolutely not necessary to remove the seats. And I think some of the people behind this are being very disingenuous when they say it has to happen, because what they really want to do is put in a great number of bars within the theater to sell alcohol. And they are appealing to a younger audience, and they want to put bars right in the main theater, in the lobby, in the mezzanine, to sell booze. And frankly, that audience, when they spill out into the Castro district, that's not what the neighbors there want. I also want to speak to my resentment of the Nasser family and Another Planet Entertainment characterizing the opponents to their plans as kooks and renegades or something, because I will speak to the fact that I have been there 18 years, and I have the most loyal audience in the world, and they come back year after year after year and pay the full ticket price that has allowed me to create a nonprofit foundation expressly for the purpose of restoring and preserving films. None of that would have been possible without the audience that makes the Castro Theatre what it is. And that audience deserves respect, not to be dismissed because someone thinks that they can make more money selling booze in the auditorium.
Thank you, sir. That is your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And I can say that I've been to every Noir Film Festival almost from the time they started. Thank goodness Eddie was here today. It is absurd that we are here, that there's even a question about the seating in the Castro Theatre. History has value. All of you know that, or you wouldn't be passionately putting yourselves into the work that you do. History is preserved in those seats, and the beautiful wooden floor underneath those seats. When you remove those seats and rip out that floor, you have changed the experience of the people who come there totally. And that experience has value, just like sitting in this room, which is historic, has value. If we were in a room where they ripped off all the wood and lowered the ceiling, you would not have the same experience. So I'm begging you. I didn't want to even use that word today because I'm so depressed and so angry and so upset that this is even an issue. We, the people, can make this a nonprofit, can preserve these seats for the future. We can make it happen. We can find the funds. We do not have to be pressured by people who have more money. Eddie did it. We can do it. There are people all over the world that care, love, feel passionate, and don't even know what's going on at the Castro Theatre, that the seats might be ripped out. This is ridiculous. Moving the concession inside the theater should be absolutely, unquestionably, not even on the counter. So, please, Do your historic vote for justice and for the future. 100 years from now, the people will thank you that you have valued these seats now. Thank you.
Whoops. My name is Rebecca Solnit. I've been watching movies at the Castro Theatre since I was in my early teens. I feel like I learned how to watch movies there, listening to the audience, having a kind of experience that is essential to what cinema was and still should be, not watching something on the back of an airplane seat or your phone or your computer while you twiddle around and do other things, but this kind of going to church with all the other people, sitting there in the dark with you, sharing an experience. It was the gay men murmuring and snickering and sighing in the audiences who taught me so much about what to see in the movies I saw there. Westerns, noir movies, Fred and Ginger dancing, documentaries, film festivals, foreign films, silent films, the AIDS documentary, We Were Here for a Packed House, at the Harvey Milk documentary where we got to see the theater itself on the screen because it's such an essential part of San Francisco history. Cinema was born in San Francisco with experiments of Edward Muybridge in the 1870s and 80s. I wrote a book about that. This has been one of the great world centers for cinema. The Castro Theatre is the crown jewel of cinema in this city. As a historian, I've written about the city many times. I've written about Muybridge. In 2010, I produced, with many collaborators, an atlas of San Francisco showing all the theaters that were present in this city, dozens and dozens of them. Now we're down to just a handful, all of them small except for the Castro, the last place in the city where the glorious experience of cinema can be experienced the way it was intended to be. It's been so important to me, to so many people here, to so many people in the city and around the world. We need the seats as part of what the theater is and can be and should be going forward. And so I urge you to preserve them so that movies can be, in the future, what they have been in the past. This glorious shared experience in the dark, this enormous spectacle that's profound and moving in a way that it was always intended to be, that we don't get on our little devices in our tiny rooms in multiplexes. So I'd like to give you copies of these maps, and thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Gary Hobish, and I've worked as the music mixer at the Silent Film Festival for the last 25 years. I'm here to tell you that preserving the front of the building and the marquee certainly honors and benefits the Castro community. But when you preserve the soul of what happens inside this now 100-year-old monument to cinema, you honor and benefit our entire city by demonstrating to the world our commitment to the arts and to the preservation of the only environment in the entire Bay Area that is suitable to support one of the largest and most comprehensive film communities in the world. I recognize that in order for the theater to survive economically, the scope of events presented at the Castro must diversify, but that does not mean that the seating arrangement has to drastically change. Live presentations have been part of the theater's makeup for many decades, and seated concerts, as illustrated by the Morrissey show there 2 weeks ago, are still a thing. There are many examples across the country of historic theaters that have modernized their infrastructure and preserved or restored their classic architecture and decor, becoming multi-use facilities, presenting a wide variety of arts programs, and addressing community support without losing their soul. It will take vision, ingenuity, and a bit of compromise, but mostly it needs the will to do it. It can be done, and you can help make that happen. Please do not close the door on extending the Castro Theatre's historical landmark status to include the basic auditorium seating plan. It's part of the soul of our city. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rachel Bauer. I am a moving image archivist and a San Francisco State University Cinema Department alumni. At present, I work for the San Francisco Ballet. And as you may know, we're opening Nutcracker tomorrow, so the fact that I took time out of that madness to be here tells you how much this means to me. And also, thank you, for the sake of clarity, I am not an official representative of the ballet. But I can say, as somebody who works in the performing arts and works for an organization that represents an ancient art form that is very much dependent upon presentation, upon specific aesthetic spaces as well as safety spaces to best present its art form, I think that amongst my very personal and professional concerns with gutting the Castro of its seats is what it says about the city, what it says about what we consider art and what we do not. We would not be having a similar conversation about doing this to the War Memorial Opera House, which hosts our opera and our ballet. We would not be having a similar conversation about this with the symphony. We are a city that prides ourselves in our arts and our history in the arts, and the Castro is tied into that. I would also add, to bolster the voices of everything else has been said, an additional comment to make on the subject is the character of the neighborhood. Another Planet Entertainment is trying to come in and make the Castro Theatre be something it is not. Now, while the Castro neighborhood itself was not always the gay mecca that it eventually became in the middle of last century, it is part of its core identity. It is part of our identity of civil rights and diversity. And by Another Planet Entertainment saying we should make the Castro Theatre be what we want to be to suit our business end and not what it is to the community, what it was designed for, what it wants to be, and is still a valid, and again, it's not a gray lady. During the pandemic, there were two places I wanted to go to most. One was bottom of the hill for a rock show, and the other was the Castro Theatre. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jessie Fairbanks. I'm the director of programming at SF Film. We are the producers of the oldest film festival in the North Americas and patrons and partners of the Castro Theatre. What we are all trying to say today is that we are intelligent and caring members of the public. We understand that it is on the agenda as a continuance, and what we are asking you to do is to stop punting this issue because we care and we will continue to show up. So please bring these conversations into a public forum where they can be discussed. We are not going to lose interest in this subject. The seats and the rake are essential to the Castro Theatre. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name's Loretta Molitor. I'm a filmmaker and attendee of the Castro for many decades. I came here ready to balk at the continuance, which I'm not going to do. I've been convinced of its value. But on certain areas in particular, one is the ADA seating. I think no one is saying that there should be no changes at all to the Castro. But obviously the changes that were first on the map for APE were, I don't believe, acceptable. I think it would make it a death trap for disabled people. But I don't speak for the disabled community, but I think it definitely will be worth hearing more from them as far as alternative plans. I think one of the problems is transparency on the part of APE in terms of business plan, whether it's the alcohol sales and all that. They don't seem particularly open to any compromise whatsoever. So those are some key issues, I think, in this time to address. And I'm sure I'll kick myself for what I'm forgetting now, but thank you.
Hi, I'm Jordan Zucker, and I think above all else, I'm just a film lover, and I love that theater. I've been hundreds of times, and one of the things I always loved about it, on the way to the bathroom, walking around the lobby, is seeing all the film posters on the walls. And when I was there for the Day of Silence on Saturday, the thing that struck me is there wasn't a single film poster anywhere. There were pictures of concerts from other 8 venues, like all of their other venues, which I go to for concerts. But it's already changed there, and change is going to come, and change comes to the city. But we do have to draw a line before we no longer recognize this as the movie theater that we all have grown up with. So we have to make sure that it can still be a movie theater, because if we lose that, then what's the point? Thanks.
Hello, my name is Patrick Marks, and I'm a small business owner. I have a bookstore called the Green Arcade on Market Street. Thank you. I wanted to start off by saying that, at one point, several years, 10 or so years ago, the Red Cross bought the building across from on Market Street from us, and there used to be a cafe on the corner. They decided at one point they tried to find someone to run the cafe, and then they decided they needed more office space. I'm not really sure if they ever did a change of use or not, but I have to say that it was an extremely deleterious moment for the neighborhood, and especially for that corner. And the planning department, of which I have several friends, had actually did a bulb out for them, the cafe, to put out more cafe tables, etc. And of course, that just has now been nothing but kind of a nuisance area. I bring that up because in looking at some of the programming for APE, I noticed that several months of this past fall, like for instance at the Fox Theater in Oakland, the theater was dark almost 20 days of the month. So the idea of mixed use, I mean, we're hoping that, obviously we talked about Morrissey, and Anita Mongo, who is a great programmer from the Castro Theatre now for the Silent Film Festival, has looked across the nation, and these things are available to look at other venues that are very similar to the Castro in their historic significance, and they have kept all their seats, and they have been extremely successful in doing multi-dimensional programming. So I think this idea of activating is a really important issue, and I think for the merchants and for the people who are in the neighborhood to have the theater change into more of a performance space with taking out the seats and adding a different demographic will actually be detrimental to the neighborhood. Because when, for instance, like we said with the Silent Film Festival, people were flooding the neighborhood, and it was a benefit for all. So basically, this idea of being dark, I think is a really, because this is, this is in a neighborhood. It isn't like the Warfield, which should be in a neighborhood. And sometimes neighborhoods become devalued because of vacancies. And in a way, we're allowing them at this point to add almost half of their time to be dark. And then they will complain about people hanging out in front of the neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Jessica Thrasher, and I just want to share that I would like to also add my support in expanding the landmark designation to protect the historic interior of our one and only Castro Theatre. The first time I visited the Castro was for the Silent Film Festival in 2008, after happened to just see it in the newspaper. Since then, I've seen over 100 films there and brought friends and family from around the world to visit. One of my favorite memories is seeing Eddie Muller interview Peggy Cummins, the star of Gun Crazy from 1950, in front of a mesmerized, packed house at the North City Film Festival. There's no other place in San Francisco where I have more memories, and it was so influential to me that I now live nearby. I fully support expansion of new events at the Castro as well and welcome the investment in restorations to keep the theater vibrant for its next 100 years. There's no reason that this needs to happen at the expense of the ability to be a world-class theater for the presentation of films of all kinds. And I also encourage everyone to view the long list of examples that Anita Manga has shared on Twitter at AnitaManga7, highlighting the historic theaters across the country with seating. The Castro Theatre is the last huge surviving film palace in San Francisco, and we're so lucky to have it. Let's save the integrity of this neighborhood institution. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Megan Smith. I apologize for talking at the wrong time, but it seemed like everyone else was, and I was afraid there might not be time later, that we just might have moved past that. I'm a longtime attendee of the film festivals, the Noir City and the Silent Film Festival. I was just there on Saturday. The place was packed. I bought pizza afterwards. I'm a perfect example of someone coming into the neighborhood, buying something, and spending my money there. I'm also the demographic that honestly probably won't go to those concerts, but if you get rid of people like me, you're losing all of that business as well. People like me like to have a seat. We like to be able to see. I'm short. I like to be able to see the actual film, the head. I did go to the public town hall meeting to hear about the movable seats they're going to move in and out, and it just, to do that for a one-day film festival just seemed incredibly expensive. It was never clear who was going to have to pay for that. I mean, honestly, I would pay more for a ticket to keep it the way it is, just to put that on the table. I'm also, thank you. I'm also a member of the Victorian Alliance of San Francisco, so obviously preserving the Victorian buildings is very important to me and to our group, and I think to our city. Thank you very much.
So I'm very confused because we had been told that all commentary would be at the beginning of the meeting. I'm parked in a 2-hour zone by a BART station, so I've decided I will come up here, but I'll try to stay as well. My name's Gary Meyer. I've been in the theater business. I've been in the theater business since I converted my parents' barn into a theater when I was 12 years old. When I got into the business professionally in the early 70s, working for United Artists Theater Circuit, two of my mentors were Teddy and Henry Nasser. I was in my 20s, they were in their 70s. They were very proud of their theaters, but they also saw that theaters were having a difficult time. The Castro Theatre was a run-down theater. Another of my mentors, Mel Novikov, who ran the Surf Theater, was curious about this theater. And we went in there one morning, took the janitor's light, shined it up on that incredible dome, onto the murals and the organ lofts, which people hadn't seen in many years because they kept the lights low and there was cigarette smoke and dust that had covered those things. And Mel had a vision. He said, just because this theater has not been doing well and the theater business isn't considered to be great right now, I think we can change that. And Mel did. He made the Castro Theatre an incredible place that became the home to festivals and special events and the kinds of things that all these people have talked about. I know that the Nasser family, the current Nasser family, is very proud of this theater. They will not allow the theater to be torn down and replaced by apartment buildings, but they have to have a good vision. And I believe there are people out there who do have an idea about how to make this, again, a successful theater that is multi-purpose. And I would just only say that I have often respected the APE people, but I think that they've kind of missed the boat here in trying to compete with the Fillmore Theater.
Thank you, sir. That is your time.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Netta Fedor, and the only reason I feel as if I might represent filmgoers in San Francisco is before COVID. I saw over 700 movies on the big screen in calendar year 2019. So I'm a frequent filmgoer. I adore movies. Other people before me here today have spoken more intelligently and eloquently, but I plead with you to save the cultural, to help preserve the cultural integrity of San Francisco by preserving the layout, the configuration of the seats at the Castro Theatre. It is absolutely essential for our cultural and artistic well-being. Thank you for your consideration.
Hi, My name's Cheryl Rosenthal, and I've been coming to the Castro since the early 90s, participating in Frameline mostly. I can tell you that Pride would not be Pride without Frameline Film Festival. Having, what that theater offers is a house that creates community. And community is so hard to find in our city, especially with how diverse and big it's come. But the one place, I remember in the 90s walking through the Castro, you knew most people, right? We all knew each other. We were all involved in community events, and it was really a community. That's gone, right? The only time you experience that is when, for me, when we have 10 days of being at the Castro and a packed house happens, probably, I can't say the statistics, but a high number of evenings and weekends when you have 1,500 gay people in one spot. We just don't have that church anymore. We don't have that spot. No matter what film festival you are, community is being brought together, but also created. People from around the world, as people have said today, they all come to this space from around the world to experience events. And if we lessen the number of seats in this space, and if we take the slope out and change that, we're going to lose so much community that's generated there and then is created from around the world. So I implore you to please listen to all these people that have been here, that have spoken to you before, to have town halls, to really please, as one person said, I don't want to use the word beg, but I do beg you to keep the Castro Theatre the way it is. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Matthew DeCoster. I am a 30-year resident of the Castro with my partner who's sitting over there. His name is Matthew Carhart. I'm here to talk about something that makes me different, and that is my love of plants. I really love plants. I knew I was different from a young age because of my interest in plants. And the reason why I came to San Francisco was because of the Conservancy of Flowers. I was there a couple of days ago enjoying the plants, and there were some broken windows. So it occurred to me, and I urge you to consider this, in order to pay for fixing up the broken windows and maybe improving some of the sight lines, we rip out the plants. And we turn it into a roller skating jazz club where we serve booze. And every so often we can bring in a plant here and there, and we'll enjoy the plants when they're blooming, but only on certain occasions. It'll be about roller skating and drinking and jazz. So please give that some consideration, and I will be back speaking later. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no additional...
Step up already, come on. Let's move on.
Next time there'll be hundreds here.
Speak up, Peter.
Good afternoon. My name is Peter Pastraj. I'm Executive Director of the Castro Theatre Conservancy. I'm not going to address you on the subject of the destruction, the possible destruction of the orchestra floor of the Castro Theatre, because I can hardly imagine a distinguished commission like this one ever agreeing to that happening. I would rather just say a few words about the negative results of delay. If 4 years ago you were thinking, what should I be doing next January, you could have looked at what was scheduled at the Castro Theatre and seen 23 different films and not one day where the theater was dark. Something was going on there day and evening, every day in January 2019. If you look now at the website of APE and the Castro Theatre, you will see one event in the month of January. It it can't be allowed. You cannot allow, we cannot allow it to happen that way. And so I just ask that you listen to all of these distinguished and passionate people who've come before you, and know that there are many, many more. 7,600 people signed a petition on the website Save the Castro, saying, please save the Castro. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm very short. My name is Becca Robbins. I've lived in San Francisco for 20 years, and I lived here before in the 90s when I was young and trying to figure out what to do with my life. I love this city with all my heart. It has changed so much, and I so believe that it can still be great and still be beautiful and still we can be here for each other. We can make a beautiful culture, and it is so hard to believe that these days. And I am holding on to hope because we have such a long track record of it. This is a tiny, tiny city that has had an outsized impact on the world, for better and for worse. Social media is rooted in San Francisco. That's in its origins. Tech has changed the world. Harvey Milk is from here, and that changed the entire world. The heart of San Francisco is still beating, but it is so hard to watch it wither. We have Club Deluxe has not opened up, Broken Record closed, Bourbon and Branch closed. The number of nightclubs that we have lost is staggering. And right now, the soul of the Castro is in peril. I am also begging you, as someone who loves culture and community and nightlife and movies and stories, to keep this place alive. We need hope, and we find hope in art and in stories and in film and in community. And the seats and the floor are so important to that. Thank you so much.
Okay, folks, if there is no additional comments from members in the chambers, I'm going to go to our remote callers. Again, when you hear that your line has been unmuted, that is your indication to begin speaking. Mary Powell, your line has been unmuted.
I'm sorry. I apologize. It's for another item, but I have been listening attentively, and having been born and raised here and a great supporter of the Castro Theatre, I agree with everything that has been said by people in the chamber.
Thank you, Ms. Powell. You'll need to press *3 again when your item comes up.
Good afternoon. This is Cal Callahan. I'm manager of the Leather and LGBTQ Cultural District, and I would like to add our voice to the chorus, urging the Commission not to kick the decision on the Castro Theatre down the road any further. We don't think the delay is in the interest of the community. Personally, I have lived in the Bay Area since 1983. I've attended more films and live performances in the Castro Theatre than I could possibly count. Sitting in such a historic setting surrounded by our community to enjoy the shows together is both a rite of passage and a touchstone of the queer community in San Francisco and the entire Bay Area. The Castro is not only a treasured building, but an important part of the gay community's shared culture. And the interior is part of that experience. It's as important as the facade and the marquee. So we would urge you not first to preserve the theater, but also not to delay in the decision to do so. Thank you so much.
Hello. My name is Robert Hillman. I was a commissioner in the city of San Francisco decades ago, and I want to talk about briefly that At that time, when the federal government was making the entire Presidio available for repurposing, the number of billion-dollar proposals that wined and dined people in the city of San Francisco in one way or another to convert that entire Presidio area from its military complex into something that was going to bring so much money and tourism and advantages to the city and make a number of people incredibly wealthy, went on and on and on and on. And to the city's credit, and a lot of us fought very hard at that time, it went to a lot of other institutions, that many of the nonprofits and people in the arts, and the nature of the place, the character of the place, the historic value of the place, and the sanctuary of some of the forests and areas and along the coast there were preserved, and not without a lot of blood on the tracks. Because when big money comes in with all their song and dance about what needs to happen for the future and how it's going to be rosy and wonderful and better, it's really better for them and not better for the city and the people who live their lives here with great joy. So I think, obviously, I think the seats and the raked floor and all that has to be preserved, and it should not be kicked down the road to a future time when they hope people will be asleep and they can get away with it. I'm also a filmmaker, friends with the fellows who won Oscars for things like The Life and Times of Harvey Milk, and who, can walk to the Castro in 90 seconds from where they've chosen to live out their years here and continue making movies. I've premiered a film at the Castro, brought in someone from Texas that was the main character in the movie, and when he arrived at the Castro, the most macho, heterosexual, right-wing person you'd imagine, he saw two men, and we're talking now back in the early 1980s, two men kissing in front under the marquee with his movie writ large on the marquee above his head, and he couldn't believe it. He thought I was going to take him into a place where there were men kissing in front of the theater. By the end of the evening, he was in a local bar down the street, meeting and having intelligent conversations for the first time in his life with a gay community. You just can't replicate the number of stories
Thank you,
that
sir.
all of us
That is your
have
time.
on this theater.
My name is August Braddock, and I have been going to the Castro Theatre since I was 17, 10 years ago. I moved to San Francisco during this time and was an incredibly insecure young queer person, and this space gave me community. I would not have the people in my life that I have now if it was not for the community that I was able to form while sitting in the beautiful Castro Theatre and many of the seats. I have spent hundreds, if not thousands, of hours inside of this theater and have made so many friendships because of it. I've also brought people there that are important to me and have marveled at the awe that they visibly show on their faces when entering this space. This is a beautiful space that's loved not only by San Franciscans and people in the Bay Area, but by people worldwide. It is important to the queer community, especially the young queer community that does not have spaces where they can gather, especially post-pandemic. This is one of the few places where we can all be together and marvel in beauty and be happy and safe. By getting rid of the seats in this theater, you are taking away a historic space, not only for cinema, but also for the queer community. By doing that, that is a detriment to our city, and it would be appalling. The city needs to show that it values historic spaces and values art by saving the seats of the Castro Theatre. Thank you.
Mr. Gregerson?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, my name's Gary Gregerson. I'm a filmmaker. I'm also a commercial tenant at the Redstone Labor Temple, which is also a historic landmark in the city. So I am speaking in favor of preserving the seating and not delaying the decision. on this item. I think that would give APE more time to try and buy people off. And I also think, you know, they've already been trying to do it with this, you know, having Morrissey come play at the theater. It's kind of cynical in my opinion, since he's a fascist sympathizer at this point. So they're just thinking, oh, the gays, they love Morrissey, no matter what he does, and they'll love us no matter what we do. But APE has already shown that they don't even know what the community is about. They've already said as much in other hearings. They don't know what this community is about. And in my opinion, I mean, that would be great if we took it even further, or if APE, you know, decided not to run the theater anymore. They could buy a whole office space, a whole office building downtown at this point, and they could convert that to a venue. You know, there's so much empty space. They don't need to come. Actually, we don't really need them, but since they are there, barring like the community, barring they back out and a community coalition or some other entity run the theater, barring that, we need to preserve the seats, and we need to make this decision as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay, folks, I understand how passionate you all are about this issue, but I'm going to request that we pause on the clapping and cheering and whatnot. It's a little disruptive in that it claps over people's comments, and so we can't hear what they're saying. And when someone begins it or ending their comments, you can't quite hear it. Really, the appropriate way is to do your silent happy hands if you really want to show support. So please, if we could be respectful that way, I'd really appreciate it.
And we can applaud after people have spoken. We have waited 10 months for
Mr.
a hearing.
Petralis, you're out of order at this time, but you're speaking and clapping over the next person's comments. Go ahead, Mr. Miller, or Miss Miller, Serafina.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. My name is Serafina Miller. I'm the current interim board president for the Art Deco Society of California. It's our mission as a preservation organization, as a nonprofit, to increase public awareness of the Art Deco era through preservation and promotion of its art, architecture, music design, and other forms of popular culture. And I think what's really important as we think about the situation here with APE is that, unlike the Fox Theater, this is not about saviorship, but it's about allyship and, frankly, co-conspiratorship. The era of top-down bulldozing in the name of progress is not how we move our communities forward. It is through partnership and community feedback of what's important, what's of value. The community is speaking to save the seats and to include the interior of the theater in its landmark designation. And so I, on behalf of our preservation organization, implore you to listen and to take that action. Thank you.
Thank you, most of you.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Thank you so much. My name is Mimi Brody, and I'm calling in from the Midwest. I wish I could be there today, but I am a third-generation San Franciscan. I have worked with several film organizations that utilize the Castro Theatre, including the San Francisco International Film Festival and Frameline, among several others, the Jewish Film Festival, and many others. And I have deep roots in San Francisco. My grandparents immigrated from Mexico and Iran, respectively, as children in the 1920s. In the same year that the Castro Theatre was built, in fact. And my parents were married in San Francisco City Hall in the late 1960s. So I have deep roots there. And I just want to say that I'm so alarmed and so upset about the egregious proposal being put forth by APE and their plan to rip out the seats, which would truly destroy the sightlines, and as many have said before me, would really rip out the heart and the soul of this iconic, important, living and breathing building that belongs to all of us. I would like to add that all the original features are critical to showing film, including the seats and the sightlines, can work perfectly for seated music venues if APE was willing to compromise at all. There's really absolutely no reason that APE must essentially destroy while claiming to restore San Francisco's last remaining movie palace. I flew all the way out to San Francisco from Chicago for the town hall to listen in person, you know, with an open mind to their plans. And I came out even more alarmed and perplexed. I just find that their proposal of ripping out the seats and putting in movable platforms that no other theaters use is just really untenable. And it will certainly prove to be a logistical and financial nightmare for many of the film organizations and the LGBTQ organizations that will be pushed out, not to mention damaging this historic venue, the last of its kind in the city. I also just want to add a couple of more points briefly. APE has disingenuously, in my opinion, used the issue of restoring the Castro's original ornamentation by implying that they are the only entity who can restore these features, which is certainly untrue. And I would like to add that this is absolutely not a zero-sum game. All of the original features can, of course, be preserved. One historic feature does not need to be saved by destroying another. And I want to
I'm sorry,
end by
ma'am, but
saying
that is your time.
Okay, thank you so much for listening.
Hello, my name is Melly Killian. I grew up a few blocks away from the Castro, and I have spent most of my adult life working in film in other parts of the country, and now live back near the Castro again. And I'll say that I was cautiously optimistic when Another Planet took over the Castro, and I saw the schedule of their other venues and saw how many dark days in a month the venues had, thinking that you could sneak in a sort of night of repertory programming here and there, and that the commitment they were espousing to film programming was possible if they kept the seats, essentially, and if they kept the projection and everything as it was. As soon as this proposal of the seats that would be brought in and out, depending on the programming, was unveiled, it was clear to me that anything sort of resembling the programming that I grew up with at the Castro was just really not going to be feasible in this new arrangement. I've worked at venues that change over for live performance and for film, and the cost is extremely high, and the logistics make it nearly impossible. There's no way that a band could sort of load out on a Tuesday morning. You could have a film program that night, maybe a film program on the Wednesday, and the next day set up for a Thursday night concert. It really just makes it impossible for anything other than a large festival, and a festival that's going to put a large sort of investment of a week of programming or something like that into whatever their plans are for their program. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about sort of the type of film programming that I would really miss if this plan to rip out the seats went through. And also, I just wanted to mention that we've talked a lot about how important the Castro is to San Francisco, which of course is true, but it's one of the most important film venues in the entire country. It's something that San Francisco can be proud of, sort of beyond how important it is to all of us locally. It really is an example of the type of film palace that is a jewel for really the entire country. So thanks for the time.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, okay, fantastic. My name's Stefan. I'm a Contra Costa resident, and I just wanted to chime in here and let you know how I feel. I'm a longtime patron of the Castro Theatre. First time I visited the Grand Palace of Cinema was about 2005. I was fresh out of high school, movie obsessed, and I went to go attend the annual Silent Film Festival. I was awestruck. The resplendent Art Deco architecture, its ornate mezzanine balconies, regal staircases, majestic chandelier, it left an indelible impression. It was no mere multiplex, it was a sanctuary. Arriving late to the show, I found to my delight, despite ultimately finding what would usually be undesirable seating anywhere else, an unobstructed seat with great side angle towards the big screen. Undoubtedly the result of the architect's forethought. What followed was a mesmerizing night at the movies and a lifelong, unabashed devotee of the Castro Theatre and me. So I implore everybody present, members of the board, and everybody else, to consider expanding Castro's landmark designation to include preserving the seating structure as it is, in an effort to solidify a theater's historical architectural aesthetic and cultural integrity. I and thousands of moviegoers who have frequented the theater through the years, we fear that without swift action, the theater may share the same fate as the neighboring Fox in Oakland, become just another entertainment venue outfitted to appease the appetite of its new benefactors and wholly ignore the community which the theater has built over time. Something as seemingly small as just seating configuration or reconfiguration can irreparably alter the vibrant cultural strands which community is bound. Reconfiguring this Castro's seating as a multi-purpose entertainment hub flagrantly tarnishes the theater's unique history as a repertory movie house, one of the few remaining, and quite literally strips moviegoers, local and otherwise, of the experience of cinema writ large properly, as intended by its architect proprietors and scores of filmmakers the world over. So I implore everybody, from one moviegoer to another, to take into consideration and promptly vote to preserve the integrity of the Castro seating structure as originally conceived. The theater should remain a towering beacon of the arts and culture for the country and should remain so. It would be tragic for things to end up otherwise. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Hello, my name is Kathleen Wu. I am a native San Franciscan who has watched movies at the Castro Theatre for several decades. I regularly watch current classic and silent movies and documentaries there, and I attend film festivals including the Silent, the Noir, and the Jewish. The film festivals are the cultural events in the city I most look forward to each year. Spending consecutive days enjoying good films in such a beautiful and atmospheric theater with other film lovers from all over the world is a highlight of living in San Francisco. I strongly believe that the criteria for including the seating configuration and the sloped floor into the theater's landmark designation is met. The seating and floor are integral to the total movie experience as it was originally intended. After all, the Castro Theatre is the last San Francisco movie theater to regularly show movies that were made in the era that the theater was built. I believe that while the theater is first and foremost a movie theater, it can be used for other live entertainment and even more comfortably with the existing configuration. I urge you to expand its landmark designation to include the existing seat configuration and sloped flooring. I'd really like to hear what the reasoning is behind the appeal to postpone this decision, because I really can't think of one. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jesse White. I'm a resident of San Francisco. I love the Castro Theatre. When I moved here, it made San Francisco feel like home, and I urge you to save the seats and save the soul of the theater. Thank you.
Okay, last call for general public comment. Okay, seeing none, general public comment is closed. Commissioners, it'll place us under department matters for item 1, department announcements.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Rich Ducre, Department Staff. The only thing I have to report is the Turks and Taylor landmark nomination has moved on to its second reading at the full board. So it's on its way towards the mayor's signature and has been received full support from the board. Otherwise, this concludes my report.
Okay. Commission matters. Item 2, consideration of adoption draft minutes for the ARC meeting of October 19th of this year and the regular meeting of November 16th, 2022 of this year. Members of the public, if you wish to address the commission on the minutes, please come forward. If you are calling in remotely, you need to press star 3.
Hi, this is public comment on the minutes from your last meeting where you had an item related to the historic lampposts in Harvey Milk Plaza, correct? And I've looked over those minutes, and there were brief descriptions of what speakers had to say during public comment. It was quite skimpy, to be honest. And seeing how when you do have public comment in your minutes, it's a lot of times just too short. You do not get the sense of what the person is asking for, what they are addressing, if they're for or against what is up for proposal. So I'm asking you with that in mind, especially for the historic importance of today's hearing, that you give at least 3 sentences to describe what each speaker has said, so that the public record you create with taxpayer funds today really shows the passion that has come from every speaker today. I think we really deserve at least 3 sentences for everyone's comments. Thank you.
Okay, last call for public comment on the minutes. Go ahead, caller.
Yes, hello, there's a mistake. I was trying to comment on the seats. Am I allowed to do that or not?
We've already closed public comment, the general public comment, ma'am. I apologize. The Castro Theatre will come up again, but just on the matter of continuance. Last call for public comment on the minutes. Seeing no additional requests to speak, comment on the minutes is closed, and they are now before you, commissioners.
Second.
Thank you, commissioners. On that motion, then, to adopt the minutes, Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Commissioner Black?
Yes.
Commissioner Johns? Yes. Commissioner So?
Yes.
Commissioner Nagaswaran?
Yes.
And Commission President Matsuda?
Yes.
So moved, commissioners. That motion passes unanimously 6-0. Item 3, commission comments and questions.
Are there any commission comments or questions? See none at this time.
Very good. Commissioners, that'll place us on item 4, the proposed 2023 hearing schedule. You received a draft on your 2023 hearing schedule. Essentially, it's the first and third Wednesday of every month. Traditionally, we've simply adopted that schedule and canceled hearings as needed, unless you all see the need to cancel a hearing ahead of time for any particular holiday. We can certainly entertain that now. No.
It's fine.
Okay, members of the public, this is your opportunity to address the commission on the hearing schedule. You need to come forward or press star 3. Seeing no requests to speak, commissioners' comment on your 2023 schedule is closed, and I would request a motion to adopt.
A motion to adopt.
Second.
Thank you, commissioners. On that motion to adopt the...
May I speak?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Which microphone?
On the hearing schedule, yes.
This one? Hello. My name's Stacy Wisnia, and I am the executive director of the San Francisco Silent Film Festival.
Ma'am, is this on the hearing schedule for 2023? We're on...
I wanted to talk about the...
Yeah, we've closed that. We've closed general public comment. You'll have an opportunity to speak to the Castro Theatre on the matter of continuance when we take that up. Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. I misunderstood the timing.
Okay. On that motion then to adopt the 2023 hearing schedule, Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Commissioner Black?
Yes.
Commissioner Johns?
Yes.
Commissioner So?
Yes.
Commissioner Nagaswaran?
Yes.
And Commission President Matsuda?
Yes.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously 6-0. And will place this under consideration of items proposed for continuance. Item 5, case number 2022-006075 DES for the Castro Theatre at 429 through 431 Castro Street. This is a proposal to designate the property as a landmark, and it is proposed for continuance to February 1st, 2023. Members of the public, this is your opportunity to address the Commission on the matter of continuance only, not on the project itself. And so if you're in the chambers and you wish to speak to this matter, please line up on the screen side of the room.
It's my understanding that there's a representative from Supervisor Mendelman's office here.
Excuse me. I would like to
right.
request a recusal from this continuance item.
You have a motion to recuse. Is there a second? Second.
Thank you, Commissioners. On that motion to recuse, Commissioner Wright. Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Commissioner Black?
Yes.
Commissioner Johns? Commissioner So?
Yes.
Commissioner Nagaswaran?
Yes.
And Commission President Matsuda?
Yes.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously 6-0.
Thank you, President Matsuda and Commissioners. I'm here on behalf of Supervisor Mandelman. My name is Jackie Thornhill. So Supervisor Mandelman initiated the expansion of the theater's landmark designation because it is good historic preservation practice, given that the existing landmark designation and analysis is dated and does not address the interior of the building to the same extent that such a designation likely would if approved today. The Nasser family has requested that the Commission delay consideration of the update, and in light of potentially productive conversations between the Nassers and other parties, we do support the property owner's request for a brief delay. The updated landmarking will proceed early next year, and whoever ends up operating the theater long-term will be subject to your approvals regardless.
Thank you very much. So
Okay.
members of the public, just to reiterate, this agenda item is on the continuance. So your comments about the continuance are appreciated. I also want to say that we have received a number of emails from you, and we have read them and have taken them very seriously. And thank you for taking the time to share those comments with us. Again, this is about the continuance. So if you'd like to share your public comments about the opposition or the support of the continuance, we're very happy to hear that.
Hello, my name is Matthew DeCoster, and I do like plants, but I like movies even more. I am part of the Friends of the Castro Theatre Coalition. Our coalition of 27 individuals and organizations is focused on preserving the Castro Theatre as a historic film palace and multi-use venue. The Castro Theatre is a space like none other. Offering film programming since the silent film era, it's the last film palace of its kind in the Bay Area and one of the few left in the country. For the last 50 years of its history, the Castro has been the core site of LGBTQ cultural expression and community building, and our goal is to maintain the theater as a successful place and cultural anchor in the Castro neighborhood. We are aware that the item, as Ms. Thornhill just alluded to, on expanding the theater's landmarking to include the interior is on the agenda today, and Supervisor Mandelman's office has proposed the item be continued until February 8th, is what I have. We still believe that the item should be heard today as scheduled. It's encouraging to hear that there are nice talks going on between the Nasser family, APE, and the supervisor's office. However, your body can give that discussion some clarity and let them know what you consider to be of historic, intrinsic value within the theater to guide those discussions. Your body should not be responding to a company's business plan. They should know what your parameters are within where they want to do business. We're putting the cart before the horse if this body waits for a business to hear what it can do instead of being told what it's allowed to do. I urge you to not continue this item. It's doing real damage to the community. It's doing real damage to the neighborhood. And it's unconscionable that our city could lose this jewel box that another Planet Entertainment says they venerate, but they want to rip out the seats. You can't have it both ways. There are plenty of examples throughout, as Ms. Mongill has told you, there are plenty of examples, as you see in your packet, throughout the country and the world where there have been grand movie palaces with multi-use benefits. The programming that APE is doing is cynical, I agree. It shows no interest in preserving cinema as an art form within the Castro Theatre. This is just a move on their part to remove the seats, to sell more alcohol in an ableist and ageist move to pack people in for concerts only. Please save the Castro Theatre and help save San Francisco. It's why some of us come here. Thank you.
Again, this agenda item is to hear your public comments as to whether you oppose or support the continuance.
My name is Michael Merrigan. I have been a San Francisco resident since 1969 and a patron of the Castro Theatre for over 50 years, which is over half the time it has been in existence. Our community has been worn down by the past year of jockeying among the owners of the theater, Another Planet Entertainment, and various community groups over the future of the theater. We know there have been many, many meetings, but we do not know their content or what is being said by those who are referred to as our community leaders. I implore you to not delay further and to act today to expand the historical designation of the theater to include the interior. It needs to be the first step in the process of restoring the Castro Theatre, and no good reason has been offered to delay it. Please give us some action and some hope, and do not postpone passage of the resolution. Thank you.
Okay, so apologies for speaking earlier, out of turn. I'm speaking personally as a film lover and goer and former employee of the Castro Theatre for many, many years, as well as a film festival director, and as a parent of a teenager who identifies as queer and has recently been very transfixed by seeing films in the Castro Theatre in the seats. And my heart really aches at the thought of pushing back this decision on many levels, but with kids, time moves so much differently. And every month that we deprive young people and audiences of knowing that they will get to see films in the theater is a big loss. As San Francisco's film festivals, attentions have been pulled away from planning while we look for other venues to house our events. It's been torturous, I have to say. There are no venues that come close to the Castro as a space that has a large enough audience space, can show film, can show DCP. The Castro is the only place that works for film festivals. So delaying this decision just continues to put the burden on these nonprofit film festivals and deprives the public of the lively film culture that the Castro has been the center of. I also want to say that I understand that the Nasser family was against the original landmarking, and I don't understand what the benefit is of waiting to push this landmarking through when the impact of the renovations on the theater will be the same regardless of who is operating it. And if you truly care about San Francisco as a center for film and arts culture, and the Castro as the center of the LGBTQ community, then you'll move ahead with this and stop prolonging the decision.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Scott Embledge. I'm with the Castro Theatre Conservancy. You've heard a lot of passion about this issue. I'm going to talk
in practical terms. I'm a lawyer. I don't have the passion side, but I do know the practical issues here. And there's 3 reasons why this continuance is not a good idea. The first is what Matthew brought up, which is you can today set parameters that will guide future decisions by the city and guide future discussions among the parties about what can and can't happen at the Castro. Making that decision today is a great public benefit. Number 2 is what Stacy just brought up. If you don't make a decision today, you let an important cultural resource sit essentially vacant because APE is not programming at the theater, and APE is not negotiating with the film festivals so that they know what the heck they can do in 2023. And there's a third reason, and that third reason is there's no reason to delay. The only controversial issue about this matter that's before you, about the updating the landmark designation, is about whether or not a 100-year-old seating configuration should be preserved. Should it be considered a character-defining feature at the theater? There is no need to delay a decision on that. As President Matsuda said, you've received many, many emails. You've received hundreds of letters. You've seen a petition that Peter said it was 7,600. If you check today, it's actually over 8,000 people have signed. The only reason anyone has given not to move forward today and approve that the seating configuration as part of the character-defining features is because APE doesn't want you to. Why? Well, they've said publicly that they need to rip out those seats so that they can enhance ADA access and provide a better HVAC system. But when they've been asked by me and others at public meetings whether if the Conservancy can show you APE, how you can enhance access, how you can have a better HVAC system without ripping out the 100-year-old seating configuration, would that satisfy you? They've said no. They want dance floors, plain and simple. So why wreck a 100-year-old seating configuration to give APE dance floors? It's only if you believe a myth. And that myth is that if you don't cave into APE, the Castro is going to shutter itself. That's not going to happen. In this holiday season, say bah humbug to that kind of argument. APE knows, and the Nasser family knows, that the Conservancy is ready, willing, and able to run the Castro as a true multi-use venue, fully programmed, and preserve the seats, and keep it as a home to the film festivals, and honor its status in the LGBTQ community. There's no reason for delay. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Deborah Hawley.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. SF Gov, can we go to the overhead? Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Deborah Hawley. I'm a land use and environmental planning consultant, film lover, and member of the Castro Theatre Conservancy Working Group. There's a lot I'd like to say today, but I want to be respectful of your time. And so I will address the continuance. As Mr. Emblis just said, there is no reason for a continuance. I'm sure everyone would agree that the expansion of the landmark designation to the interior should be evidence-based, not based on how negotiations are going between the Nassers, APE, and members of the community. So I really see no reason for the continuance, and a reason to hear this now, decide this now for all the reasons that Mr. Embledge mentioned. And I love this letter that you all received from John Waters, so I'm going to read it into the record. My name is John Waters, and I'm a film director, Pink Flamingos, Hairspray, who has appeared live at the Castro Theatre many times over the past 40 years. The slope floor and seats are indeed a big historic characteristic that defines the venue as the Bay Area's Radio City Music Hall gay mecca. I am 100% for expanding this landmark designation. Thank you, John Waters. And thank you, commissioners, for listening. And please hear this item today.
Good afternoon. I'm Charlie Zucco, a Castro resident for over 30 years, a proud member of the Castro Theatre Conservancy, and a plant lover. The first time I was in the Castro Theatre was in 1986. Can't remember the name of the movie, but as the lights in the house dimmed and the movie started, my boyfriend reached over to hold my hand. I pulled away. He whispered, "Don't worry, it's okay. We're safe in the Castro." The Castro Theatre is my temple. Don't ruin it. Please landmark the interior of the building, including the seats and slope now, rather than postpone the decision. The overhead are good. Now I'm honored to read this post from Tales of the City author Armistead Maupin. I've long regarded San Francisco Castro Theatre as the temple for the queer community. It was there that I saw a newly restored Sudden Fear with Joan Crawford and laughed with a crowd of 1,500 at John Waters' Polyester in Smelly Vision. And don't get me started on the Frameline Film Festival with its many wonders from around the world. On a personal note, this was the theater where I read Michael Tolliver's Letters to Mama for the first time, with Harvey Milk and Cleve Jones in the audience. Now the owners have come up with a nasty scheme to tear out the seats and make it a concert venue. Terrible, terrible idea. So I'm joining the campaign to save the seats, and hope you will too. Thank you, and save the seats.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Therese Paletti. I'm the Preservation Director of the Art Deco Society of California. I also wrote a book on the architect of the Castro Theatre, Timothy Pfluger. I met my husband and many new friends at the Noir City Film Festival of the Castro. This theater is near and dear to me personally and to every San Franciscan I have spoken to about it. It's important to the worldwide film community and many of the Bay Area's film-focused nonprofits, and most importantly to the LGBTQ community. There's no reason that the HPC cannot hear the amendment to the theater's landmark status today. It's important for the HPC to recognize the theater's intact 1920s interior, the raked floors and the seats and the aisles as character-defining features. And please add the second period of significance to include the theater's association with the LGBTQ community. Just last month, the theater has shown that it can function as both a live event venue and a movie palace with the auditorium seating. For example, Morrissey played to a sold-out crowd. Last weekend, the Silent Film Festival's Day of Silence had huge attendance. And last night, I witnessed a major line for the Babylon screening that went around the block. Please do not let the special interests of a corporation and their profit margins influence you and delay this important decision any longer. It is time for the Castro, for San Francisco to say no to the corporations that are removing every last trace of the city that we all know and love. Thank you very much.
Members of the Commission. My name is Isabella Miller, and I'm here in a dual capacity, both as a member of the Art Deco Society's Preservation Committee and also the Program Director of the Berkeley Film Foundation, an organization that supports local independent filmmakers in the East Bay. I really would like you to take a moment and understand and look around you and see the group of people that you have before you in this room. I don't know if you are film lovers or film festival goers, but these are giants in the community of our cultural hub. They are doing their jobs by being here, protecting this essential artistic environment, and all of us here oppose this continuance. This is not only about resisting change. It's not about that. It's about causing irreparable harm to a community, to a thriving community in the name of corporate interests. I encourage you strongly to deny the continuance motion you have today and vote to include the seats in the landmark amendment. Thank you.
Hello again. I just want to briefly add to my remarks from earlier today. The addition of the interior of the theater into the landmark status is a wholly separate issue from what anybody who manages the theater might plan to do with it. It is an important part of the landmark status. Excuse me? No. It's an important part of what goes on in the theater. It's part of the soul of the theater. It's what makes the Castro Theatre the Castro Theatre. Please do not vote for the continuance. Please hear this item today.
Good afternoon. My name is Owsley Brown, and I'd like to add my voice to opposing the continuance. I've lived in San Francisco since 1993 and immediately was introduced to the Castro Theatre. It has absolutely defined my life for this entire period, so much so that I would literally go on to try to, in some way, connect myself in every possible way to the theater's business itself by way of becoming a filmmaker, in no small part because of the Castro. Also having one of my own films, my first film, be presented at the Castro as part of the Frameline Festival. And I think at issue here, I'm also a member of the CTC and the Silent Film Festival Board, and I think at issue here is the question of stewardship that I'm sure you as a group think often about. And I think that the business models that we're really needing to look at closely is really the difference between a for-profit and a not-for-profit business model. I think really the stewardship, long-term stewardship of the Castro Theatre is clearly best managed in a not-for-profit business dynamic. And I hold nothing against for-profit ventures that are trying to make a profit. But I think in this case, with regard to stewardship of this total treasure in the world, we need to hold this issue of a nonprofit business, which is set up to manage very, very beautifully, as has already been spoken to, this actual kind of business that the Castro is in the business of conducting. I'd also like to add my voice, having had a chance to really consider the day-to-day business of the Castro up to 2019 as being somehow a losing business venture. This is not true, and I think APE is misrepresenting, and the Nasser family seem to be misrepresenting the actual business model itself, which from my side, from those that have been considering this closely, actually can be a profitable business, albeit better suited to be managed within a nonprofit context. Lastly, I'd like to say that as a father of 3 children, I have raised my children at the Castro Theatre, and my oldest child is now 27 and eager to return to San Francisco to one day start her family, and she thinks of it as unimaginable to return to a city that would not give her the chance to share with her family what she grew up knowing herself at the Castro Theatre from the time she can't remember. The same goes for my son, who's chosen a career in filmmaking and acting in no small part because of the definitive experiences he had at the Castro. So I implore with you to consider future generations and the uniqueness of this sacred temple and what they could have, as we have all had, which will be considerably definitive experiences in their life. Thank you very much.
Wait a sec, I lost my hearing aid. Hold on, hold on. Hold on. Wait a minute. I can't get my hearing aid in. Okay, my hearing aid is working. Great. Hi, Michael Petrellis again. First of all, thank you for giving everyone 3 full minutes. I have loved hearing what everyone has to say here in this room and on the telephone. Of course, I'm against the continuance. Send the continuance into the dustbin of homosexual history. It is obscene that this continuance has even been requested by Mandelman. I have to single out Mandelman for not releasing any information on his social media or by his 4 staffers explaining why he wants this continuance. But that's in keeping with silence, basically silence from Mandelman about where he stands. You've heard me kvetch. that he has not held any town hall meetings or even listening sessions. Yet I know from his calendar he's having lots of meetings behind closed doors with executives from another planet. Speaking of another planet, where are they? Greg Perloff, are you here? They say they care, and they're not here. No APE executives are present. None of their 4 lobbyists are here. Bevan Dufty, you're the community liaison getting $7,000 a month. Where are you? Now, the Nasser family. They own this cultural institution, and they have allowed it to deteriorate to the point that millions of dollars are needed to restore and upgrade it. The Nassers should be here. They and Greg Perloff with Mandelman should be holding listening sessions. They should be not only listening to us, but telling us what their plans are. And you know what? All of them, Mandelman, Nassers, and Perloff, put it in writing. It is outrageous that 10 months into this traumatic experience of APE taking over management, we have so little in writing. I want to call upon all of the community groups, from the Conservancy to the Cultural District, to get transparent. You guys are also not communicating with us. The Conservancy and the Cultural District haven't held any town hall meetings, and we need to have our own meetings to discuss what is going on. So, thank you for listening to me for the past few months. And again, thank you for the 3 minutes given to everyone. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Laura Gordon, and I'm also representing the Art Deco Society of California and the Preservation Committee. And first of all, I'd like to say we've been here about the length of an average movie. Would you have liked to have been standing up for all of this? Are we so happy that we have seats to sit in? I also have been involved in many Save the Theater campaigns. The Alameda Theater, the Orinda Theater, the Paramount Theater, and the Fox Theater. And I can tell you what happens. Those that preserve their interiors are somehow able to manage continuing to show films and also to integrate other kinds of entertainment. Those that don't change irrevocably. The Fox Theater is something that we worked on for almost 10 years, raising money, raising awareness, and people had fantasies of what it would be. There might be concerts and dance shows and movies and live entertainment of all kinds and all varieties and all sorts of community events. That's not what happened. When Another Planet Entertainment took over, after all these years and all these millions of dollars of restoration, it became nothing but a venue for rock concerts where people stand up and drink. And all of the people that I begged and pleaded with to donate money and to show up for events have never really gone, because they were the more senior people that were hoping that once again there might be a live venue or a movie theater venue made out of the Fox. Now, luckily, there is the Paramount Theater in Oakland, so it wasn't such a loss to have these two kinds of venues in the same place. But in San Francisco, we have only one legacy theater, one movie palace, one Castro, with all of the varied possibilities that it's had in the past and in the future, and I really hope that you, as the body that can set a parameter for the negotiations that continue, will not allow a continuance, but make a decision now and help us out. Thank you.
Hello, Tara DeMolin speaking again, specifically about the timing and the continuance. I would very much like to ask that you consider, and please don't minimize, the mental health impact of a continuance at this time, because many of the communities that rely on this theater LGBT community, arts community, elderly community already experience a lot of isolation, and in the last 2 years have watched many important institutions fall, none of which had the mammoth cultural and community significance of the Castro Theatre. It's the holidays, and I think there are a lot of people who are deeply invested in this issue. I don't think that a continuance is going to 2 months is really going to upturn any new information. I don't think 2 months is really going to change any of our commitment to being here and having our voices heard. I do think 2 months, there's a lot of wear and tear mental health-wise for the people who care so much about this issue, and the people who are the most deeply and directly impacted by this issue. And I would just like to respectfully request that that be heard and felt and not minimized. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Amanda Salazar. I'm a film programmer, but most importantly, I am a film lover, and I oppose the continuance. I was at the Castro the last week before it closed at the start of the pandemic. In fact, with probably many people in this room. Shout out to Netta, who saw 700 films in 2019. She was definitely there. I went there at this very scary, strange, and uncertain time because the Castro is a space that I go to feel better, to feel moved, to be in community, and to feel something bigger than myself. It provides deep comfort for me and clearly our community. While I and many others are grieving the ways in which the Castro is not likely going to have the programming that it used to, and thank goodness that the festivals that are represented here in this room and in our community are still curating the space and bringing us together. They're providing that magic. Prolonging this decision is the worst thing that you can do for our community. These are the moments in history where we will look back at that will shape our city, that will define our community for the next 100 years, and you are the commission that can help us move forward with this decision. Please stop this delay, make the right decision with an effort to save the seats with a historical landmark designation so that we can commune together again. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jordan Menashe. I'm the Director of Operations for SF Film. We run the San Francisco International Film Festival. As an operations person, I love rules, and I just want to acknowledge, I know we've bent your rules a little bit today by taking a lot of our general public time to share our passion and share what we care about so much, so I just want to acknowledge that. Thank you for letting us do that. I also want to echo what people have said today. A longer delay, I oppose this continuance. A longer delay in making this decision means a longer delay for all of the nonprofits that do film programming, all of the film festivals that are trying to bring film and to bring events back to the theater. It just prolongs our ability to plan, to be able to make decisions. We are a small staff of a lot of nonprofit people that have been working for months now, almost a year, trying to find alternatives to the Castro, and there is not one. There is not an alternative to this building. It is a very, very special place in San Francisco. It is my favorite place in San Francisco. And the longer we delay this decision, the longer we delay the ability for film festivals to know whether they're coming back or not. It is a delay to the economy of the neighborhood. Are we going to be able to bring programming there? Are we not? I have worked very closely with Another Planet Entertainment for the past year, and with the Nassers for a long time before that. I do not believe more transparency is coming from them. I do not believe that a delay of 2 months on this decision will result in more information. The Page and Turnbull report has already put out. The Nassers have already done the work of reviewing this building and knowing what changes need to be made. But our passion is not going to wane over the next 2 months, so more answers are not coming, but we are also not going away. And I just want to echo what someone else here said today, that I do think that this commission does have the power to make this decision. I think we are looking to you to make this decision. I think Another Planet is looking to you to provide some guidelines and to provide some framework of what is possible in this building or not. And I think it would be really helpful for us to know that sooner rather than later. And I think my hope is that you guys feel you do have the information to make that choice today. Will we continue to have a beautiful, historic cinema in San Francisco, the only one that exists? Will we have a movie palace or won't we? I think it does come down to that. And so I hope that you can all acknowledge that I think you do have, hopefully, the tools and decisions needed to make that decision today and not to have this continuance to make this call. I appreciate your time so much. Thank you.
Hello, thank you, commissioners, for your time. My name is Robert Byrne. I'm the president of the Castro Theatre Conservancy, and I'm here to ask two things of the committee. First is to act today without further delay to approve the measure, and that is to approve it with an amendment that protects the interior, including the fixed orchestra seating and the sloped floor. I'm the last person in line, and that gives me a certain amount of privilege in that I've heard every speaker before me. I have not heard a single vote or single voice that does not agree with those two positions. The seats are an essential characteristic of the theater. In addition to stage and screen, they are the very definition of what a theatrical space is. And it's a historic space. It's irreplaceable. It's essential to the fabric of San Francisco, to the community, and to culture, and arts, and entertainment. As a multi-use space, it's been for decades, not just for film, but an exhaustive list of shows, performers, events, meetings, community gatherings. If ever a place represented the soul of a community, it is the Castro Theatre in San Francisco. To convert the Castro to a platformed, floored venue suitable only for use as concerts, sponsored by a single promoter, would be to desecrate that space. It is a crime against the arts, it is a crime against culture, and a crime against the people of San Francisco. The Castro Theatre is unique and irreplaceable. It's been said before, many times. We're about the seats, and there's no going back. It is the most important, the most popular, the most culturally significant, the most diverse, the most financially affordable, and the most historic venue in our city, and it would be lost forever. Please vote today to protect the Castro Theatre, the entire Castro Theatre. There's no need for delay. This theater requires and deserves protection, no matter who owns it or operates it, now or in the future. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, folks. I need to ask you to refrain from clapping, please. Okay, we're going to go to our remote callers. Again, when you hear that your line has been unmuted, that is your indication to begin speaking. Mr. Gregerson.
Hi, yes, this is Gary Gregerson again. I'm a filmmaker. I'm a commercial tenant at the Redstone Labor Temple, another historic landmark in the city. I feel you should not continue this item. There should not be a continuance. I don't think Another Planet deserves a continuance. It feels like it is kind of catering to them. I don't think they deserve a continuance. I mean, I'm of the mindset, if they could just, keep the seats and not even have any film programming. That's kind of what they've said already and kind of what they're doing already. And so they already show they aren't really interested in film. I think they wouldn't be responsible stewards of this theater. So I don't know why we should cater to them. And like I said, hopefully maybe things could change and they will go buy an office building somewhere and put in a venue there. All right, thank you.
Hello, President Matsuda and commissioners of the Historic Preservation Commission. My name is Stephen Torres. I am the executive chair of the Castro LGBTQ Cultural District. As you commissioners know, the cultural districts were established by the city and county of San Francisco to provide a conduit between the community and the city, especially regarding our cultural and historic legacy and landmarks within that purview. We strongly oppose the continuance as it does not serve any purpose that we can identify. We ask that you hear this item today you have heard many comments illustrating why this is the will of the community and why this is what the community wants. As representatives of the community, we reached out to the Nasser family when they were keeping their theater artificially closed longer than they needed to. We've reached out to Another Planet to engage with them. We are heartened to hear that there are conversations being had that are productive with the supervisor's office. That is not our experience with Another Planet Entertainment or with the Nasser family. So we feel as though that this should be heard today, and thank you for your time.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Brian Springfield. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a member of a few neighborhood organizations, but I'm speaking here today as a longtime citizen of the Castro neighborhood and a member of the LGBTQ plus community. First, I have great respect for Supervisor Mandelman, and I appreciate the work he does for our district, so it brings me no joy to disagree with him on this issue of continuance, but I do. I understand that there are productive conversations underway about the theater's future, but I strongly disagree that the important work done by this commission should at all be impacted by these conversations. So please, no more continuance. There is so much angst in our community already and in the entire city about APE's plans for the theater. We've heard from a lot of folks today. Earlier, I think it was November, this commission continued APE's certificate of appropriateness application to give them time to conduct good faith community outreach. They've done none. Now, I'm unaware of any plans to do any outreach to the community and to the public. The threat to the Castro Theater feels very real, and continuance only furthers this angst. So, today we see APE barely and begrudgingly runs film at the Castro Theater while they seek city approvals, but they are a live music promoter. They have no history of commitment to film, and nobody should be fooled into thinking that they will continue to run film once they've secured the desired approvals and the rake floor and the fixed seating is gone. It's just preposterous. They'll make installing the seats cost prohibitive, then throw up their hands and say, oh, well, we tried. So the question before this commission is whether or not San Francisco will part with its last remaining movie palace so that there can be another Warfield or another Great American Music Hall, another Fillmore, or another Bill Graham Civic Auditorium. The city already has those buildings. We have those spaces for live music. They're wonderful. But we have one remaining movie palace in which to gather as a community and celebrate film together. So I am urging you, please save it. And until this commission updates the landmark designation to include the rake floor and rows of fixed seating, the history and legacy of film at this theater is at risk. So please, no more continuance of this important issue. Please take up the update to the landmark designation today and preserve the Castro Theater. It's not in the best interest of the public to put this off until February of 2023. So I don't know if it's possible to hear this item today, but if not today, then as soon as possible, please. Do it for the people, do it for the class.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Christine Madrid-French, Director of Advocacy at San Francisco Heritage. We are opposed to the continuance under consideration, and we urge the Commissioners to recommend the landmark designation amendment to the Board of Supervisors without further delay. There has been a rise in public interest in the future of this theater and the screening of films in a historic venue of this type. Last weekend, the Castro and the Art Deco Society of California hosted a day of silence with 6 showings of classic films attended by a large audience at the last of San Francisco's Golden Age movie palaces, with the original seating arrangement intact, and indeed one of a diminishing number of resources from this era throughout the country. The Castro Theater's importance as a center of film appreciation has grown to an immense level of significance. San Francisco Heritage has closely followed proposed changes to the Castro Theater building and programming since the announced change of operations earlier this year. We and our nationwide network of supporters are looking forward to the approval of the resolution for landmarking the interior of the Castro Theatre at today's meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission. Thank you so much for your attention to these concerns and recommendations. The Castro Theatre is one of the city's great treasures, and its future a relevant concern to all San Franciscans.
Hello, my name is Nadine May. I'm a native of San Francisco and a self-described film festival slut. That's because I go to see lots of movies. I go to almost all the film festivals held here in San Francisco. I was at the Silent Film Festival on Saturday with a full house, almost a full house for every single screening. You already realize, I'm assuming, commissioners, that one film festival in Noir City has already moved to the East Bay. The people at the Silent Film Festival are basically waiting to find out whether they can have another film festival at the Castro. I am against any continuance. I am for the inclusion of the seating in the landmark designation. And I just want to say that there are people who come from all over the world to attend our film festivals at the Castro. They will not be happy at the platform seating, and, you know, they don't come here for music concerts where they can drink and stand around and bounce up and down. They come for classic cinema, which they often can't get anywhere else. So I strongly urge you to vote against the continuance and to save the Castro Theatre in all its integrity, including the seating. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Randall Ann Homan, and I represent a tiny nonprofit organization called San Francisco Neon. We're so happy that the neon signs of the Castro Theatre have been landmarked, but we urge you today to save the rest of the building. The neon signs won't mean much without the gem of a movie theater that the Castro Theatre is, that you've heard from so many people means so much to the city. I can't see a reason to delay. We want to be sure about historic preservation in our city, and for you to vote on this today shows that the Historic Commission is sure that this theater deserves the preservation of the entire theater, the seats, the stage, all of it. We really appreciate the opportunity to speak. We appreciate that you will make this decision today and show how sure you are about preserving the Castro Theatre. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth, and I'm a longtime fan of the Castro Theatre. Sloped floors and seats and stage just make it a really special place. I really support expanding this this designation of preserving all of those things to enable us to keep showing films there and amazing drag shows and film productions and all of those things. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alan White. I'm a San Francisco filmmaker. I'm a film professor, and I'm a longtime customer of the Castro Theatre, which also happens to be in my neighborhood a few blocks from my house. I think at this point, the continuance feels like nothing more than political gamesmanship. We're at a point now, in terms of the fate of the theater, where we need to quickly decide what's going to happen to it, as various film festivals that utilize the theater already experienced terrible hardship during COVID. They had 2 years where they could no longer exhibit. That was of great financial hardship to them. They also risked losing a percentage of their audience. on a permanent basis, people who decided they didn't want to go to the movies anymore because they didn't feel safe about it. At this point, what we need to do is encourage those festivals to continue to operate in the Castro Theatre so that they can build their audiences back up, so that those festivals can then perpetuate themselves for future generations of San Franciscans. It's an important economic issue for all those festivals, and it's an important cultural issue for all of the customers of those festivals. So please, I urge you to not delay the vote on the historic preservation of the interior of the Castro Theatre. It's essential that we keep it as it is. Thank you so very much.
Hi, my name is Ben Terrell. I'm a writer and resident of San Francisco. Been living in the walking distance from the Castro since 1992. It was my favorite thing about the city when I first came here, and it's always been a cultural beacon for people I know all over the country, and I've met people from all over the world. And I think this is a classic case where showing the falsity of the famous line from the movie Wall Street, greed is good. Because the Nasser family can make good money from the film festivals operating at capacity. And they can also have an excuse. They don't have to tear the seats out. But they're being greedy, and Another Planet Entertainment is being greedy. And we have to have culture to sustain ourselves. And we're not saying the Nassers can't make money. We're saying we live in a world where we need culture and we need community, and people have put years of their lives into preserving the culture that is enhanced by the Castro, and that culture has enhanced the whole neighborhood, the whole city, and it's unacceptable that they and Another Planet Entertainment think they can just keep this process going and put it off and not have a cultural preservation that includes the seats. So there's a reason I'm very angry about this, and I've told you why, and a lot of other people feel this way, and rightly, and quite rightly so. Thank you.
Okay, last call for public comment. Seeing no additional requests to speak, Commissioners, public comment on your continuance calendar is closed and it is now before you. Well,
Thank you.
I take that back. We have one more caller.
Good day. I just wanted to really quickly thank you for allowing me to speak. The importance of maintaining the cultural identity in this neighborhood, we have seen it happen across this nation where we have our identities erased by rebranding. Now, I'll give another historic landmark. They renamed and rebranded Negro Bar to Black Bar. And in the Another Planet statement, they said that we want people to say Another Planet has changed the cultural identity of the Bay Area. We want this neighborhood to really explode with this pairing. And although it wasn't probably meant to sound this way, but that demonstrates the gentrification that's taking place and the loss of our cultural identity. Because when you bring in something new, you replace it. And then therefore the next generations do not have the ability to know what their true history is. And that is especially prevalent in the communities that are branded Black. And when you take away these cultural landmarks, we don't have those physical monuments that are standing for us to remember the things that have been taken away from us. So it would be very detrimental that you would prolong this and not make sure that this is preserved. Thank you for your time.
Okay, Commissioners, with that, this matter is now before you.
Thank you. Members of the Commission, anyone wish to make any comments? Commissioner Johns?
Thank you. Well, this is a fine kettle of fish we've been handed here. There's, it seems to me that there's a great deal of uncertainty here. I sense that there is not only conflict with another planet and the Nassers and the supervisor, but I also sense that there's a conflict between some of the community groups that have come here today, that there is some uncertainty and perhaps some distrust among those groups. At least that's what a feeling that I got. Now, in this confusion, the supervisor has requested additional time of 60 days so that the parties can continue negotiations to try and work something out. At the bottom of this whole thing is, well, there are financial considerations. And I don't know, because I haven't been a part of any of them, of course, but I have been through a lot of contentious negotiations over development. And one thing that I've encountered many times is the fact that what one party is able or willing to do, in this case, I would say another planet, may very well depend upon the financial arrangements that it has made with the Nassers. And that depending on what those are, another planet may come to the table and do something that is more in keeping with what the community wants. Of course, we don't know. Now, I can see that the nonprofit scheduling problems, which are a real concern to the nonprofits without question. But I don't think anything is going to be done within the next 60 days if this is continued. I don't think there are going to be probably any events or performances or anything else booked at the theater, because I think that it takes longer than, well, you can't just book these events quickly. So in light of the supervisor's request and the general murkiness of this situation, I would be inclined to continue this to February the 1st, but I would also be inclined to let everybody know that I don't think the commission should go beyond February the 1st, and that everybody should be prepared to show up and make their case at that time. So that's my current thinking.
Thank you. Commissioner Black?
Yeah,
Excuse me, I'm sorry, but really that's uncalled for at this time. Okay, and I'm going to ask that you members of the public just respect these proceedings and keep the hissing and cheering and darring to just end that ridiculousness.
I want to follow up on your comments. As commissioners, we see circumstances like this a lot. And as someone who worked on the staff side at a city for many years, I know how antagonizing and how awful this is for you to not have decisions as early as possible. I get it. And we've heard it. We all have, and we all care about this, we all have hundreds of emails that we've received, mostly from people who feel the way you do. And we're aware of how strongly you feel. But I want to also point out that the beauty of the public process, and why I think all of us are here and take this so seriously, is the public process, and I know the attorneys in the group will understand this, affords everyone a chance to be heard, everyone. And at the moment, we've only heard from you. We have no information from the project proponents, rightly or wrongly, no application. We don't even know what they're proposing, other than we've heard from you, and incidentally in the neighborhood, and I live pretty close. We don't even really know what's being proposed. The second component that we deliberate on every hearing is information from staff that discusses the context. What are the zoning codes that apply? What is it that we're able to do and what we're not able to do legally? We don't have that either. We have none of this information in front of us. And in fact, it's almost ironic that because this has been shown on the agenda as a continued item, there could be many people, and I expect when it is set on an agenda, there will be more people who want to be heard on this item. So we're not even hearing from members of the public who would want to be heard, who don't even know that they would have a chance to be heard. So it's important for us to try and do our best to uphold the integrity of a process like this and think it through from everybody's perspective. And I get it that you're really tired of the project proponents, and I get it that you're frustrated because you want an answer, but we're not prepared to give you a sound deliberative decision because we don't have all the information. We haven't heard.
That's a cop-out, a total cop-out.
Well,
Corrupt, and it's copping out. You know what's going on.
Ma'am, again, you're out of order.
Public, and you do whatever the hell you want, and that's exactly how it goes.
Well, it's fair enough. For whatever, however you may feel this, my statements, and I know my fellow commissioners feel the same way, we sincerely want to do the right thing. We just need the appropriate process to be able to do that fairly.
Are there any other members of the commission that wish to make comment? So just to remind the commissioners again, this agenda item is on our agenda for the request for a continuance. It's a procedural matter, and we are asked to vote whether to vote to continue it or to not. So if there is a motion to continue.
I move that we continue this until February the 1st, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second.
Very good, commissioners. If there's no further deliberation on that motion to continue item 5 to February 1st of 2023, Commissioner Black?
Yes.
Commissioner Johns?
Yes.
Commissioner So?
Yes.
Commissioner Nagaswaran?
Yes.
And Commission President Matsuda?
Yes.
So moved, commissioners. That motion passes unanimously.
I'd like to
5-0.
take a little break.
SF Gov TV, San Francisco Government Television.
Okay, good afternoon and welcome back to the San Francisco Historic Preservation Commission hearing for Wednesday, December 7th, 2022. Commissioners, we left off on your regular calendar for item 6, case number 2022-003902 PCA for the Neighborhood Commercial and Mixed-Use Zoning Districts Planning Code Amendment.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Aaron Starr, Manager of Legislative Affairs. It's nice to see you all. I didn't expect to be here this long, but probably neither did you. Anyway, the ordinance before you today is rather large and complicated, but it's coming before you because of one specific clause that impacts historic resources in the RED MX districts. Currently, retail sales and service uses and office uses are permitted in historic buildings within the RED and RED MX districts with conditional use authorization. In addition, yes.
I can try to. Don't know if it's going to work.
Sorry about that. Currently, retail sales and service uses and office uses are permitted in historic buildings within the RED and RED MX zoning districts with conditional use authorization. In addition to that, this ordinance would principally permit arts activities, community facility, private community facility, public facility, school, social service and philanthropic facility, and trade school in historic buildings. The Planning Commission considered this entire ordinance at their November 17th hearing and voted to recommend approval with modifications. Those modifications are outlined in your case packet. However, the recommended modifications did not impact the aspects of the ordinance we are discussing today. I'd also note that there was no public comment against the proposed provisions for historic resources at the Planning Commission. The department is recommending that the Historic Preservation Commission approve the ordinance. The department is recommending approval because it supports allowing more institutional uses in the Eastern Neighborhoods districts to help the city's nonprofit organizations thrive and serve more communities. Further, it also expands where arts activities can locate. This not only benefits surrounding communities, but it also makes it easier for those organizations to find space that is suitable and affordable. Further, allowing more flexibility for historic resources helps ensure their continued use and preservation. That concludes my remarks. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have on the provision or the entire ordinance as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Members of the public, this is your opportunity to address the Commission on this item. If you're in the chambers, please come forward. If you're calling in remotely, you need to press *3 or raise your hand on WebEx. Seeing no request to speak, public comment is closed, and this matter is now before you, Commissioners.
Any comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Black?
Excuse me. I'm so sorry that this looks like it's going to take a fraction of the time that it deserves, because it's a well thought out plan. Cities are revolutionary. They need to adapt to trends and changes. The pandemic has taught us how fragile small businesses are, and we need to do what we need to do to preserve them, and that involves historic structures. Unfortunately, that's all that's before us today as it relates to this code as you clearly defined for us. So thank you. I would make a motion to.
We have other members who would like to make comments. Commissioner Johns?
Well, I was going to move that we adopt a recommendation for approval.
We have other commissioners who'd like to make comments. If I could ask you to hold off on that. Commissioner Nagaswaran.
And I assumed that the change in use or the authorization for other uses is compatible with those buildings well,
Correct. They still require what's the review by you? Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So, commissioners, just to provide some clarity, this is one of the many preservation incentives. We have basically some preservation zoning incentives within the code, and so this doesn't basically change any of that.
Okay.
So,
thank you. Commissioner Wright?
I just wanted to second the comments that Commissioner Black made. Yeah.
I just had a comment. Is there any way to add a finding to just to continue to support the legacy businesses in the area, or to at least call them out? We usually, I mean,
It's your resolution, so you can certainly add any finding that you want to it.
great. I'd like to ask the commission to consider that we at least consider supporting legacy businesses that are in this particular area, so that if there is a chance that they are displaced from their current business, that they will have the ability to possibly use a historic resource.
That's a request to amend the motion. I accept it.
Great, thank you. Is there a second to?
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, if there's no further deliberation, there is a motion that has been seconded to adopt a recommendation for approval as amended to include a finding to support legacy businesses in the area. On that motion, Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Commissioner Black?
Yes.
Commissioner Johns?
Yes.
Commissioner So?
Yes.
Commissioner Negus-Warren?
Yes.
And Commission President Matsuda?
Yes.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously 6-0.
Thank you.
Commissioners, that'll place us on items 7A through C for case numbers 2022-0-011-009 LBR, 2022-011-011 LBR, and 2022-011-010 LBR for the properties at 423 Columbus Avenue, 2975 Washington Street, and 540 Alabama Street, respectively. These are all Legacy Business Registry applications.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Elena Moore, Planning Staff. Today we have 3 legacy businesses. Staff will present, and afterwards, business representatives and members of the public can share their thoughts during public comment. The first legacy business application we have is for Cafe Greco, a 34-year-old, family-owned, quintessential North Beach cafe. Owners Hannah and Sandra opened the cafe in 1988, and in 2009, their son, Sasha, joined them in the business. Today, the cafe is one of the last remaining cafe pioneers that define North Beach and celebrate its Italian heritage. Local patrons and tourists alike come to enjoy drinks crafted with illy coffee, as well as homemade panforte and tiramisu. Cafe Greco is both a culinary and a community hub. The owners describe it as a second home to many people in the neighborhood. People savor their daily coffee, talk with longtime staff, some of whom work there for nearly 30 years, have conversations in an assortment of languages, read, and experience the warm and inviting nature of the North Beach neighborhood. In addition to satisfying San Franciscans' cravings for Italian pastries and food, Cafe Greco gives back to the community it serves, donating to community events, local school fundraisers, and church charities. The business owners are also active in the North Beach Chamber of Commerce and the North Beach Festival. Cafe Greco is committed to maintaining the features and the traditions at the core of their business, including their coffee, pastry, and food offerings, their classically Italian setting featuring cabinetry and display cases imported from Italy, their welcoming and loyal staff culture, their hand-painted signage and menu, the old ship masts in the cafe's interior, and finally, their posters and lithographs that decorate the walls of the cafe. Staff supports this application and recommends a resolution to add Cafe Greco to the Legacy Business Registry. Thank you. Brandon Gunn will present next.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brandon Gunn, Planning Staff. The second legacy business we have for you today is Bloomers. Bloomers, which has operated in the Bay Area for over 45 years, is a full-service florist shop that specializes in artistic arrangements crafted with fresh flowers of exceptional quality. Helmed by Patrick Powell, who has been involved in the florist business for most of his life, Bloomers first opened at 3061 Sacramento Street in 1977. In 1981, the shop was relocated to 340 Presidio Avenue. During the period of the store's location on Presidio, Powell expanded the business to include ribbons and other goods related to celebrating special events. In January 1989, Bloomers relocated to what has become its permanent home at 2975 Washington Street. Since its founding, Bloomers has been involved in countless charitable events, community gatherings, and special celebrations. The business has regularly been involved with the San Francisco City College Floral Program, both philanthropically and occasionally employing its graduates, and has even received both local and national notoriety for its quality goods, service, and commitment to the surrounding community. The business exceeds qualifications to be included in the Legacy Business Registry, and staff is very supportive of this application. This concludes my presentation, and next is Alessandro.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Alessandro Hall, Department Staff. The final Legacy Business application is for Developing Environments, an artist live-work space located at 540 Alabama Street in the Northeast Mission neighborhood. Founded in 1972 and formally incorporated as a nonprofit in 1976, the organization emerged when a group of artists identified a vacant three-story warehouse at the corner of Alabama and Mariposa Streets and transformed it into a space where they could live and work. At first, the founders fashioned makeshift studios with cloth barriers and tents. Eventually, with the support of the building's landlord, the artists erected new walls, electric wiring, plumbing, and windows, bringing the structure up to code. Developing Environments is distinguished by its commitment to a non-hierarchical, consensus-based governing structure. Members share resources, collectively maintain building facilities, and support one another's careers. These values are reflected in the physical layout of the building, which includes communal kitchens, bathrooms, and laundry facilities, along with meeting rooms and shared gallery space. Developing Environments features 46 affordable live-work units and has housed more than 375 artists since its inception in the 1970s. By creating a stable and affordable hub for artists in San Francisco, Developing Environments has also empowered its members to contribute to city life in numerous ways. Residents have volunteered at neighborhood food banks, advocated for walkable streets, taught at local schools, and founded new art programs. Having served the Mission neighborhood and San Francisco arts community for decades, Developing Environments is committed to maintaining the physical features and traditions that define the business, including its consensus-based, non-hierarchical governing structure, affordable live-work spaces, and communal building facilities. Staff supports this application and recommends a resolution adding Developing Environments to the Legacy Business Registry. This concludes staff presentations, and we're available to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We should open up public comment. Members of the public, this is your opportunity to address the Commission on either of or any of these Legacy Business Registry applications. If you're in the chambers, please come forward. If you're calling in remotely, you need to press *3 or raise your hand on WebEx.
Hi, good evening, good afternoon to everyone. My name is Carlo Abruzzese. I am an artist at Developing Environments. I'm also on the management team. And I'm just here very briefly to say I hope you will consider our application. We, on behalf of the 40 current artists and the hundreds of artists before that have been in the building, we feel like we definitely are part of the community of San Francisco, bringing and keeping arts in the city, which everybody knows is a very crucial thing at this time in the city's history. So we realize that our building is not historic in the sense of it being anything of value beyond the fact that it is now 100 years old today, this year. But otherwise, we hope the Historic Commission will approve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other members of the public in the chambers, we'll go to our remote callers. Again, when you hear that your line has been unmuted, that is your indication to begin speaking.
Hi there, Commissioners. Thank you very much for allowing comment.
My name is Dana Merker. I'm a local North Beach resident for many years, and I very much appreciate the opportunity to speak in support of the application specifically for Greco, Cafe Greco, which is one of the great neighborhood gathering points, a spot where we can get together with family and friends and groups of people in the neighborhood to be able to discuss local activities. The owners have been mostly supportive of that, particularly during the pandemic when they remained open throughout the entire 2-year process. I strongly would support this notion and hope that you will approve it. Thank you very much.
Okay, last call for public comment. You need to come forward if you're in the chambers, or press *3 or raise your hand in WebEx.
Hi, it's Mary Powell, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to participate. Unfortunately, Bloomers has suffering the effects of COVID, or I would be there in person. We want to thank the planning staff and the legacy business staff. As I said earlier, I've lived here all my life, and I've worked very closely during my professional and volunteer life down at City Hall. Bloomers is really an institution that was founded by my husband, who regrets sincerely that we were not present in the room. It is a pre-1906 earthquake building that he has fought very, very hard to respect the history and maintain in a way that is consistent with what the city and the Historic Preservation Commission would expect. And needless to say, the fact that Bloomers even survived COVID was a minor miracle, and grateful to say that it is thriving and employment is back up. Anyway, we appreciate your consideration and hope you will approve. Thank you so much.
Okay, final last call for public comment. Oh, excuse me.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Can you hear me? My name is Michael Corbett. I'm the principal author of the North Beach Context Statement. I'm sorry, I couldn't be there in person. I was exposed to COVID and I'm supposed to be quarantining. So I'll make the best of this.
I think he's...
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Sir, we're not on that item yet. When we start taking public comment on North Beach, you'll need to press *3 again. Okay. Final last call for public comment on these legacy business registry applications. Seeing no additional requests to speak, Commissioners, public comment is closed and they are now before you.
Commissioner Johns?
Thank you. Well, we've got a really interesting group of businesses here that all of which appear to be quite deserving, but I would just like to mention Cafe Greco, with which I have been familiar for a long time, particularly when as a bachelor I had an apartment on Telegraph Hill, and it was quite convenient for me to walk down and enjoy what they served. But more recently, I have been a customer of Bloomers. And I will tell you, if you want absolutely the highest quality flowers in San Francisco, in my opinion, you would have Bloomers on your list. So I support all of them, but particularly those two. And by the way, with Bloomers, in the sidewalk, slightly to the east of Bloomers, right at the curb, is one of the few remaining horse ties. And as those who have been on the commission as long as I have or longer, you'll know this is a particular interest of mine.
Thank you, Commissioner Johns. Commissioner Wright?
Yes, thank you. I would just like to thank all of the applicants for their applications. It's great to hear from the community and from these businesses. I feel like every time we have a legacy business application, we learn more about our city and the people that are important to it and to the communities. All of these businesses really touch, I think, their constituents and their neighborhoods. But I'm particularly inspired, I want to say, by the application from the Developing Environments nonprofit, and I appreciate kind of what that represents. I don't think we see a whole lot of applications that have kind of that many residents. And then, as you explained, the residents are going out into the community and doing community work and really value that. So I think it's just kind of expanding and exponential in its reach, and I just really appreciate that, and I support all of these applications.
Thank you. Commissioner Black?
Thank you. I just want to say I'm very familiar with Cafe Greco and Bloomers, but until now I was unfamiliar with the artist community, and I just want to give a shout out. I think that's wonderful. Anything that can be done to provide a community of artists who can collaborate together and share ideas and share bills and everything else is really wonderful. And it's been going on for 46 years, which is fantastic. That's great.
Thank you. Commissioner So?
So I am actually a neighbor of yours at the 540 Alabama, and I love that neighborhood, and you hit it right at the spot. It is one of the very few currently living and thriving artist community. We do art walks around there a lot with other friends in the city, and I'm glad to see you coming forward today to apply for legacy business. I would love to continue to see the neighborhood continue to thrive with our local artists and being involved and woven into the fabric. And can't wait to see some of those art studio open back up again so I can take my daughter in there and walk around and see all the amazing work. And I also love all the pastries in Cafe Greco, and I know that a friend of mine really want to call in to make comments, but I think her schedule isn't available to do that with the current meeting that we have today, the timing. But I love to support all of the application today and moving forward to become a legacy business destination. And thank you for all the staff to be so patiently and coming over here and give us a really great presentation. I always love that. And happy holidays.
Thank you. Is there a motion from the commission?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, commissioners. If there's nothing further, there is a motion that has been seconded to adopt recommendations for approval. On that motion, Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Commissioner Black?
Yes.
Commissioner Johns?
Yes.
Commissioner So?
Yes.
Commissioner Nuggets-Warren?
Yes.
And Commission President Matsuda?
Yes.
So moved, commissioners. That motion passes unanimously 6-0 and places on us on item 8 for case number 2016-013156 SRV-03 for the citywide historic context statement for the DuBose Triangle. This is for your consideration to adopt, modify, or disapprove.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Shannon Ferguson, Planning Department staff. The item before you today is consideration to adopt the DuBose Triangle Historic Context Statement, a sub-theme of the geographic theme identified within the citywide historic context statement framework. Just wanted to start off with what is a historic context statement. According to the California Office of Historic Preservation, historic context statements are intended to provide an analytical framework for identifying and evaluating resources, explaining what aspects of geography, history, and culture significantly shaped the physical development of a community, what important property types were associated with those developments, why they are important, and what characteristics they need to be considered an important representation of their type and context. Historic context statements like the one for Duboce Triangle provide a framework for consistent, informed evaluations of San Francisco's neighborhoods. They will be used to inform the SF survey effort and ensure that property evaluations are consistent with local, state, and federal standards. This historic context statement focuses on the development history and architectural features related to the neighborhood, and it creates clear review criteria through this context and removes regulatory barriers for all property owners. It's a living document. The department may further refine this document and incorporate technical edits as required and suggested by community members to recognize the history and significance of the neighborhood, including as part of the SF survey or during evaluation of properties or districts for potential local, state, or national historic registration, as well as address any comments of the Commission and the public resulting from the hearing and any further comments of the staff at the Office of Historic Preservation. I just want to reiterate that the historic context statement makes no substantive policy changes to the planning code or the planning department's procedures. So the Duboce Triangle Historic Context Statement was authored by Christopher Plank for Duboce Triangle Neighborhood Association, and it's intended to provide a framework for consistent, informed evaluations of that neighborhood. The context statement covers a broad period of time spanning the years 1776 to 1976. It begins with the Spanish colonization of the San Francisco Peninsula and ends 45 years before the present. The core of the study spans the years 1870 to 1930, which is when most of the buildings in the neighborhood were constructed. The document outlines the history of Duboce Triangle in chronological order, describes its architectural resources, discusses property types commonly encountered in Duboce Triangle, and it also includes registration requirements for local, state, and national registers, integrity thresholds, and provides recommendations for several potential historic districts and local landmark candidates. A reconnaissance survey was also conducted. Information gathered in the survey will be used to inform the department's ongoing citywide cultural resources survey and will not be adopted as part of the Duboce Triangle Historic Context Statement. The Historic Context Statement is intended to be used to inform the SF survey effort and ensure that property evaluations are consistent with local, state, and federal standards. So, the department conducted public outreach at a regular meeting of the DTNA on October 11th, 2022. The planning department received one letter from the public in support and one letter in opposition of adoption of the historic context statement. And a draft copy of the historic context statement was posted on planning's website in September 2022. A final draft of the document will be posted on planning's website pending adoption by the Historic Preservation Commission. The department recommends that the Historic Preservation Commission adopt the historic context statement because it was prepared by a qualified historian in accordance with Secretary of the Interior standards. And it meets established guidelines and standards of the National Park Service, California State Office of Historic Preservation, and the City and County of San Francisco, and that it may be used as a planning tool to evaluate significant themes, integrity, and character-defining features of individual buildings and groupings of buildings. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you.
Oh, I just wanted to say that Christopher Plank wanted to be here, but he was unable to be here due to our timing. So I do have copies of his presentation if you would like to see it.
Thanks. You need to take public comment?
Indeed. If that concludes staff presentation, we should open up public comment. Members of the public, this is your opportunity to address the commission. If you're in the chambers, please come forward. If you're calling in remotely, you need to press *3 or raise your hand via WebEx.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is David Troop. For identification, I'm the former president, or a former president, and Land Use Committee Chair, and a current committee member of the DuBose Triangle Neighborhood Association. The context statement that you have in front of you is the culmination of really an effort that started about 15 years ago during the preparation of the Market Octavia area plan, which was approved a decade ago. DT&A successfully advocated to have historic survey work done as part of that project, and that was adopted over a decade ago. But unfortunately, the Market Octavia plan stopped at Noe Street, so essentially our neighborhood was kind of cut in half, and the survey work was not completed. So over the last 5 years, DT&A did a lot of fundraising to raise the money to have this work done. We also secured money through the city, with great thanks to Supervisor Raphael Mendelman. And we started this effort in 2019. It continued through the COVID pandemic, and finally we're here today. The work that Mr. Verplank did is really, really excellent. I think, I don't know if you've had an opportunity to read the context statement, but it's a really fascinating history of our neighborhood. We have one of the most intact late 19th and early 20th century neighborhoods in the city, and it's deserving of this recognition and whatever protection that might provide to the historical resources there. So I really hope that you will adopt the context statement and recognize the broad support that it enjoys. I should mention that the money that we raised, most of it was small contributions of $100 or less, and we raised nearly $20,000. So that's an example of the broad support this enjoys in the neighborhood. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I may need the overhead for a minute, Jonas. Thanks. Hi, my name is Dennis Richards. I was past president of the DuBose Triangle Neighborhood Association for 7 years, from 2005 to 2012. Back when I first joined DT&A, it was 2004, and the planning department came to the neighborhood and said, "We're going to rezone you." And we said, "Well, we don't really know what you're talking about." Well, they said, "We had this thing called the Better Neighborhoods Program in 2000. We came and we had meetings with the neighborhood, and here's what we came up with. Here's the Market Octavia plan." And we said, "Well, that was 4 years ago. Can you tell us about what's in it now?" And as we met with the planning department, originally it was a very contentious process, but eventually it was great because with John Bilovitz and Anne-Marie Rogers, we actually worked on what we considered a better plan. And if you go through DuBose Triangle, you go through Upper Market, you'll see what a wonderful outcome the Market Octavia plans had, at least in our neighborhood, and certainly down Market Street. Part of what the contention was, we said, okay, so you're going to upzone or do density decontrol. You're going to be putting development pressure on these properties. Where's the survey? And the planning department said, "Well, we're not going to survey." And we said, "Well, that doesn't make any sense. That's backwards. Developers are telling us that they want certainty, and what you're providing to them is not certainty, because they'll get a building and they'll have to do an HRE on it, and who knows, it's a crapshoot." So part of our agreement was, if you can see here on the map, everything that was in yellow in 2005 was surveyed. Everything in blue needed to be surveyed. And you can see here, half of our neighborhood needed to be surveyed. Nothing had been surveyed before. To Mr. Troop's point of view, this has been a 18-year process.
Here's the planning department's flyer for a neighborhood meeting in 2008. Page and Turnbull did the rest of the survey work for Mark and Octavia, and we were very happy with that. However, half of our neighborhood was cut out, the portion in the orange here, which is what the context statement completes, in addition to updating the rest of the survey because it was more than 10 years. You can see coming out of the survey, we had an Article 10 district named, we had several California Register districts named, and we'd like for you to adopt this, the rest of this, complete this process after 18 years. Just a couple of points. One, we're going to be facing an upzoning due to the housing element. And just like we had in 2004-05, we said development pressure is going to be put on these properties. I know the department's doing a city survey, but what the upzoned parcels, where does the survey overlap, and what needs to be surveyed before things get upzoned? One other quick one, I think we should landmark the horse tie like we did the streetlights on Market Street.
The post, the hearse post. Thank you.
Okay, last call for public comment. Seeing no additional requests to speak, public comment is closed, and this matter is now before you.
Thank you. Any comments? Commissioner Johns?
Thank you. Well, I really just have two comments. One is a broad comment, and that is, I think this is just magnificent, really. And the second comment, it refers to page 31, where Mr. Leedsdorf is mentioned. Leedsdorf is such a fascinating character because he was the first, or one of the very first, in so many areas. One of the things is that his mother was from what was then the Danish West Indies, and she was mixed race, but a lot of her ancestors seem to have come from Africa. His father was a planter and was Danish, but he was also Jewish, and I think that might be noted here on page 31 because for some people, Leedsdorf is thought to be quite important. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Black?
I just want to commend Mr. Verplank and staff, Ms. Ferguson, for what's a really well-researched and written report, and also the DuBose Triangle Neighborhood Association, who clearly have worked for many, many years on this, to provide some funding, but also a lot of work. Very clear commitment to the neighborhood by residents comes through. And this context statement, I think, is really well done, and it is foundational to future preservation activities, which would include expanding the district. So I'm in support.
Thank you. Commissioner Nagas-Warren?
So I also support adoption. And as a living document, I had some thoughts on how, we're developing historic context statements and what could come along with as we progress through these. As Ms. Ferguson said, that it's an analytical framework and a basis for reviewing properties, identifying historic resources. And I believe it would be used also for developing HREs, correct? Historic resource evaluations, is that correct?
Yes, it would be referred to when we're trying to determine historic significance.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've written historic resource evaluations before, and when I've done the historical part of it, I've really had to gather all the information, and now this context statement is here. So is it just that the HREs would reference the context statement, or do they also have to verbalize all of that in the HREs?
They would need to reference the historic context statement.
And is that how you remove some of the regulatory barriers? Is that what you were talking about when you mentioned that?
We would have, yes, that we would have knowledge of the property's significance. We can place it within its correct framework.
Without having to do exorbitant,
yeah.
extensive research. Got it. Okay, so that's helpful. And then I also, because I was reviewing these both historic context statement for DuBose Triangle and the North Beach context statement, I noticed that there were differences in the way that they were outlined. And when I've written historic resource evaluations, the department over the years has defined an outline which we get approved and all of that. And I was curious to know whether there is a outline for historic context statements or one that's being developed so that some of the information is categorized or organized in a manner that can, easily be transferable. But I do know that different districts are different and, the areas are different, and sometimes you have to have different sections or chapters to describe things that you wouldn't have in one or the other. But I'm curious if you're developing an outline or if there is an outline.
I believe the Office of Historic Preservation has has an outline that we follow.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And I think that's it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Wright.
Yeah, thank you. I want to just first off start by thanking staff and consultants and the neighborhood. I support the adoption of this context statement, and I also want to say that I really appreciate the neighborhood's due diligence and perseverance over the many years it's taken to get to this point. And finally, I wanted to thank Mr. Richards' comment and attention to how this is relative to the housing element. I think that it's great that people are thinking about their historic neighborhoods and historic resources and what's coming down the pike and being proactive.
Great, thank you. Mr. Sucre?
Hi, Commissioners. I just want to make one comment on this project. I think important to recognize here is the partnership that the community had, especially in driving the project, in working with the supervisor's office and working with us. And it's the exact type of relationship that we like to have, especially when approaching, the history of, your neighborhoods especially. So, I just want to extend my thanks to this neighborhood group and make sure that they understand how much on our end we appreciate all the work that they've done to date. So.
Thank you. Commissioner Nagas-Warren?
I did read the opposition letter as well, and just wanted to understand, I read the opposition letter as well, and it mentions particular items of how developments could occur, whether they could, I think there was limitations. For example, there was a limitation on to one-story additional story, and the opposition to that was that the owners should be able to develop their property. And of course, that comes into play with looking at all the parameters and knowing that there are certain height limitations in these areas. And that's a separate document, correct? So I just want to clarify for that.
Yeah, the historic context statement will not make any changes to the planning code and won't have any change on our planning process.
And there's indications in the historic context statement that whether it was the North Beach survey or the DuBose Triangle, that there could be potentially guidelines. And I want to make sure that what that means in terms of clarity between policy and guidelines within the district of developing those.
I believe that maybe you're referencing a recommendation for developing historic design guidelines. Yeah, it's just a recommendation that the author had. It's not something that we would be taking upon ourselves.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Mr. Verplank and the staff for putting together a really well-written report. I mean, I think I learned a lot from it, And I'm so happy by reading this, particularly about redevelopment, because redevelopment is a horrible thing, and it ripped through so many communities, and I'm so glad that this community was able to be much more proactive and learn from lessons learned in other communities, particularly the Western Addition, to make sure that their community was able to stay alive. And I want to echo what Mr. Sucre said about the partnership with community. It's so wonderful, and it's so clear that it's a part of this document, and we all hope that we can continue to promote that with other historic context statements. So thank you very much, and thank you for being here to share your comments. So I think we need a motion, right?
Yes, I move that we approve it.
Great. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioners, on that motion to adopt this historic context statement. Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Commissioner Black?
Yes.
Commissioner Johns?
Yes.
Commissioner So?
Yes.
Commissioner Negus-Warren?
Yes.
And Commission President Matsuda?
Yes.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously 6-0. And places on item 9 for case number 2014.0311U for the citywide historic context statement,
Thank
North
you.
Beach.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Shannon Ferguson, department staff. The next item before you today is consideration to adopt the North Beach Historic Context Statement, a sub-theme of the geographic theme identified within the citywide Historic Context Statement framework. As I mentioned before, context statements are intended to provide an analytical framework for identifying and evaluating resources. They explain what aspects of geography, history, and culture significantly shaped the physical development of that community, and what important property types are associated with those developments, and why they are important, and what characteristics they need to have to be considered important representations of their type and context. So this historic context statement for North Beach provides a framework. It will provide a framework for consistent, informed evaluations of San Francisco's North Beach neighborhood. It will be used to inform the SF survey effort and ensure that property evaluations are consistent with local, state, and federal standards. The context statement focuses on the development history and architectural features related to San Francisco's North Beach neighborhood. It creates clear review criteria and removes regulatory barriers. It's a living document. The department may refine and edit this document and incorporate any technical edits as required and suggested by the community members or the Historic Preservation Commission, or as part of the citywide cultural resources survey, or comments from the public resulting from this hearing. Just to reiterate, this historic context statement makes no substantive policy changes to the planning code or the planning department's procedures. The North Beach Historic Context Statement was authored by Michael Corbett for the Northeast San Francisco Conservancy, and it documents the historical background of North Beach by themes. They include development phases of the neighborhood, including reconstruction, expansion and infill, and development after 1941, social groups and social life, commerce and industry, entertainment and vice, infrastructure, parks, playgrounds, and architecture. The historic context statement provides a summary of each theme's significance, its evaluation criteria, and its associated property types. It also includes an evaluative framework, integrity considerations, and recommendations for future work, such as designating potential historic districts and individual historic resources, and drafting design guidelines. Finally, the document includes 2019 survey findings. This is information that was gathered in the 2019 survey by by North Beach. And I just want to make sure that we know that the department is not going to be adopting the survey findings. It be used as information for the ongoing citywide cultural resources survey. The context statement recommends combining two of the historical themes of period of significance, the reconstruction theme and the expansion and infill theme, into a single theme called the neighborhood development. Page 161 of the context statement recommends that further work be done to determine if a district defined only by the expansion and infill theme or one of its sub-themes would stand on its own. And the department supports this recommendation. Staff would recommend that a thorough study be completed before undertaking formal designation of a district to determine if the district is defined only by the suggested neighborhood development theme or if it would stand on its own rather than broken down into multiple themes. The department conducted public outreach with interested community organizations, including Telegraph Hill Dwellers, on September 13th, 2022. The department received 16 letters of support from the public for adoption of the historic context statement. And a draft copy of the historic context statement was posted on the planning department's website in November 2022. The final draft of the document will be posted pending adoption by the Historic Preservation Commission. The department recommends that the Historic Preservation Commission adopt the North Beach Historic Context Statement as it was prepared by a qualified historians in accordance with the Secretary of the Interior Standards and State Office of Historic Preservation publication. The North Beach Context Statement meets established guidelines and standards of the National Park Service, the California State Office of Historic Preservation, and the City and County of San Francisco, and that the North Beach Historic Context Statement may be used as a planning tool to evaluate significant themes, integrity, and character-defining features of individual buildings and groupings of buildings. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Shannon. Members of the public, this is your opportunity to address the commission on this matter. If you're in the chambers, please come forward. If you're calling in remotely, you need to press *3 or raise your hand via WebEx.
Good afternoon, President Matsuda and commissioners. My name is Nancy Shanahan. I'm the current president of the Northeast San Francisco Conservancy, the neighborhood sponsor of the North Beach Historic Context Statement that's before you today. I'd like to share a little bit of background. This report that's before you updates and expands the earlier context statement and architectural and cultural survey that was completed by Anne Bloomfield in the 1980s under a contract with the State Office of Historic Preservation, and it was paid for by a federal National Preservation Act grant. The survey results were approved by the State Office and were later officially adopted by the Board of Supervisors in 1999. Although Ms. Bloomfield began an update thereafter in about 1999 with funding from SF Heritage and SF Beautiful, she passed away, unfortunately, before her work was completed. These efforts were renewed 5 years later in 2004 by the Northeast San Francisco Conservancy. It was formed as a 501c3 organization and therefore was able to raise funding from a lot of individuals as well as others to engage respected historian Michael Corbett to research, update, and expand on the earlier work. 18 years and many additions and revisions later, we are finally before you today for the adoption of the revised North Beach Context Statement. I would like to thank Mr. Corbett for his amazing research and documentation over the years, along with Gary Goss, who contributed a lot of information on building permits and provided original blueprints for many of the North Beach buildings, which we have archived. I would also like to thank architectural historians Catherine Petron and Shane Watson for their professional contributions, including resurveying the architecture of the entire survey area, as mentioned in
2019. Thanks also goes to numerous volunteers over the years, and I want to call out Judith Powell, who's been with us for that 18-year period, and photographer Dennis Hearn. And a special thanks to the many private donors, especially I'd like to mention the Bland Family Foundation for its generous financial contributions over the years. Finally, I wish to recognize the department's preservation planners that have worked with us over the years, including, I'd like to mention Jonathan Lammers and Francis McMillan, whose comments, extensive comments and suggestions were incorporated into the final staff report. Thanks also to the numerous organizations
Thank you, but that is
and
your
individuals that have written in support of the context statement. And thank you, commissioners, for your consideration today.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Catherine Petrin, an architectural historian. It was my privilege to work on the North Beach Historic Context Statement together with my many esteemed colleagues, as Nancy Shanahan has just stated, but most specifically Michael Corbett, who I believe we'll be hearing from shortly. Obviously, I support the adoption. You know, in general, there's so many laudatory things that are said about North Beach, and I just want to quote one emblematic writer and historian, Gary Kamiya, who said, "North Beach is one of the great neighborhoods in the world, one of San Francisco's crown jewels. Its rich history, ethnic diversity, harmonious architecture, and unsurpassed urbanity make it among America's most unique neighborhoods. North Beach exemplifies Jane Jacobs' credo that great neighborhoods must be walkable, intimate, and alive." North Beach is all of those things, but most importantly, it's a place that a multiplicity of people call home. As one of the densest neighborhoods in the United States, nearly as tightly populated as parts of New York City, North Beach benefits from a building tradition that was established in the wake of the 1906 earthquake, where secondary units, cottages, small-scale multi-unit residences are often located in rear yards outside of the public right-of-way and public visibility. Today, as we look to ADUs, additional dwelling units, to ease the current affordable housing crisis, these existing patterns of example are abundant and found throughout North Beach. In our fragile housing environment, North Beach exemplifies a neighborhood defined by a variety of building types, many multi-unit buildings housing multi-generational families. It's all documented in the context statement. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Judy Irving, and I'm a resident of Telegraph Hill. I live in an 1886 house that was built for dock workers. I walk over the hill every day to work in the beautiful Maybeck building on Stockton Street. I wrote you an email about how wonderfully peaceful it is to work there. I like to think that I'm contributing to the recent history of North Beach, Telegraph Hill, and San Francisco as the producer-director of The Wild Parrots of Telegraph Hill and other movies that take place locally. But I just wanted to come here and say, this is a great neighborhood. I've lived here for 22 years. I moved here from Noe Valley, and it is one of the great neighborhoods of the world, and it does deserve this kind of recognition, so I hope that you adopt the statement. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, last call for public comment. If you're in the chambers, please come forward. Okay, we do have a remote caller. We'll go to our... When you hear that your line has been unmuted, that is your indication to begin speaking.
Hello, this is Michael Corbett. I'm the principal author of the context statement, and trying again. I guess I spoke too early before. I was hoping to be there in person, so I wouldn't get tangled up in the technology. But Anyway, I apologize for not being there in person. No one needs to tell the Historic Preservation Commission that North Beach is a unique part of San Francisco, a very special place that is most worthy of preservation. Just a couple of things I want to point out about it. A central point in the context statement is that the real significance of North Beach is that as a neighborhood, as a whole place, and that the preservation of its qualities means both the protection of the individual buildings and of the overall character of the area. What the context statement doesn't say, but which is very important to remember, is that North Beach is not just significant to San Francisco. It's a national treasure. It's different from, but comparable in significance to places like in New York, the Lower East Side, or Harlem, in New Orleans, the Vieux Carré, Old San Juan in Puerto Rico, and Chinatown in San Francisco, and others. But North Beach, if you're thinking about the great neighborhoods or parts of American cities, North Beach is one of the first that would come to mind. But more than its national significance, it has occurred to me that the UNESCO has a program recognizing World Heritage Sites, and they are trying to expand beyond most of what they've done so far, things like the Great Pyramids and ancient archaeological sites, but they are expanding in other areas. And I think North Beach is a place that would absolutely qualify for this program. Gary Camilla's great letter of support was mentioned earlier, and that really speaks to this idea. So that as the city thinks about its preservation efforts in North Beach, to keep in mind that this is not just a special place in San Francisco, but nationally and internationally. So anyway, I'm here if there are any questions that I can answer. Thank you.
Good afternoon. This is Teresa Flandrick from North Beach Tenants Committee. I'm calling to urge your support in adopting this amazing context statement today. I have lived in North Beach for 40 years. I lived in one building for over 30 years, which was a 6-flat building with a corner store. And so internally and externally, these buildings are so important in terms of preserving, because the simplicity, the functionality of the inside is equally important as the outside. Again, it was my understanding from so many elders is that the reason North Beach was rebuilt at the speed in which it was following the 1906 quake and fire is because the importance of valuing merchants and workers and families, and to rehouse them as rapidly as possible. This is also still true today in that many of our older Italian homeowners, having inherited their buildings, still ask the first question of a potential tenant, which is, do you work in the neighborhood? The point being to house especially the workers here in the community, because that makes a community. Our corner store on Lombard and Stockton is also a place of, continuous over 100 years now, 2 different families, and they are the cornerstone in not only giving us birth and death announcements, but also actually delivering food then to the elders up on the hill or down the hill who can no longer make that journey and get their groceries. So again, at 66% of North Beach are actually renters. It is imperative that we preserve these buildings and our history. Thank you so much.
Okay, last call for public comment. Again, if you're in the chambers, you need to come forward. If you're calling in remotely, you need to press *3 or raise your hand via WebEx. Seeing no additional requests to speak, Commissioners, public comment is closed. This matter is now before you.
Thank you. Commissioners? Commissioner Wright.
Yes, I just want to acknowledge and thank the community and staff, Michael Corbett and others for the due diligence that went into quite a depth of information that was presented in this report, and the neighborhood has clearly been very involved and focused on preservation in their neighborhood for a long time. As was mentioned by previous surveys, and that were immediately once those were completed, they started looking at the next level. So I just appreciate that and wanted to thank everyone. I'm fully supportive of this.
Thank you. Commissioner Black?
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you. First, to staff, I want to thank you for getting this to us early. It's a very comprehensive report. I loved reading every word of it. I loved the images. So in addition to the well-written text, I love the historical photos. It provides such a sense of the different phases in North Beach, so I really appreciated that. This is a very fine report. The author is highly qualified. He was involved in preservation studies and activities in the area since 1982. There was significant neighborhood participation, which is really important. North Beach is just a very special area of the city. One of the neighborhood resident letters we received defined it as a village within a city, and that's really true. I really look forward to future discussions relating to the designation of individual resources and historic district, or perhaps multiple districts, and also the consideration of alterations in design guidelines, which are a really important tool to assist property owners where they know how to approach alterations to their buildings up front. So I'm highly in support of this very fine context statement.
Thank you. Commissioner Johns?
Thank you very much. I must echo what Commissioners Wright and Black have said. It's just really, really a wonderful, wonderful job that's been done. And of course, in the background, at least that I think most people will see as a background, is Nancy Shanahan and the work that she persevered in doing for years and years. So it's, again, just absolutely terrific. Thank you.
18 years is a long time. Thank you for persevering this and putting together a great, great legacy for that particular area and for the city. So do I hear a motion?
I move to approve or adopt.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioners. On that motion to adopt the historic context statement, Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Commissioner Black?
Yes.
Commissioner Johns?
Yes.
Commissioner So?
Yes.
Commissioner Nuggets-Warren?
Yes.
And Commission President Matsuda?
Yes.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously 6-0.
Thank
Commissioners, if you would indulge me, I apologize. After all of the general public comment, I was remiss under Commission Matters to note that there are no items on your next hearing scheduled for December 21st. And if I could, through the chair, go back to Commission Matters, and if you care to, you could cancel that hearing now.
Please.
Is there a motion to cancel your December 21st hearing?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioners. On that motion to cancel your December 21st hearing, Commissioner Wright?
Yes.
Commissioner Black?
Yes.
Commissioner Johns, Commissioner So.
Yes.
Commissioner Nagaswaran.
Yes.
Commission President Matsuda.
Yes.
So moved, Commissioners. That motion passes unanimously 6-0. I thank you and I congratulate you on another wonderful year. And hopefully I'll see you before the new year, but if I don't, Happy New Year to you all.
Thank you. Happy holidays to you, too.
Yeah.